Great. You're only 1 minute late.
We're doing fine.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the meeting to order and do a roll call of council members?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The meeting is being called to order at 5:31. We will take roll. Mayor Robert Parkhurst,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe,
Present.
Councilmember Edward Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember Jean Goss,
Here.
and Councilmember Kelly Krebs.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. So tonight's Pledge of Allegiance and Inspiration, we turn to Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem.
All rise if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. So, today was kind of an interesting, important day in history. As we look back, the Equal Pay Act of 1963 became law today in 1963 by John F. Kennedy as a new part of his New Frontier program. And if you have looked at the measures we've made in equal pay for all people, it has really changed dramatically. It still has a little bit of discrepancy that's irregardless of time off due to parenting or other such things, but the difference in the gap went from 62.3% of men's earnings in 1979 to 81.1% in 2018, which is the salary rise for women versus men. So that's a great improvement. We still have room to grow. Also on June 10th of 1964, a crucial burning point in the civil rights movement occurred. The Senate voted to end a 60-day filibuster on the Civil Rights Act of 1964 with a vote of 71 to 29, breaking a long-standing precedent. This vote allowed the Senate to debate and eventually pass the landmark legislation which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Now, President John F. Kennedy, of course, was assassinated before he was able to sign it into law. So President Lyndon Johnson signed it into law on July 2nd. And this really moved us forward with a lot of more protection against any of us being able to not be discriminated upon anything, and has set precedents since then. And in light of all the things that are happening right now, I just want to say that I appreciate being a person of diversity. I appreciate that our city, especially in our staff and all of those who work here and help our city thrive, are under the same goal, that we all deserve the same protections, that we all work the same, and we all are given the same accolades. I do want to say that I hope that looking towards this future, that we can not jump back to the past of things we've had to go through before, but try to come to consensus on things that go in the future and protect each other. It's a difficult world out there to be both on the side of law enforcement and to be on the side of immigrants or anybody who've come here. My family came here in the late 1800s, not legally. We became legal, of course, at some point, but at some point, all of us have been immigrating here, except for a very small portion of Native Americans. So with that, I want to move forward and say that I feel safe in Sierra Madre being a guiding light towards us using community policing. I really appreciate that anytime we have issues, we're able to discuss and we're able to come to consensus with everybody, and that I look towards the future of protecting each other and not finding diversity and I mean representing diversity, but not having such discourse and not reaching out to anger, and instead working together and collaborating. So that's what I'm hoping for in this future, of someone who's lived through the 1992 riots. When I was in high school, a senior in high school, not knowing if I'd be able to go to USC the next year because I wasn't sure if it was still standing. I'm hoping that we've learned from the past. I can always hope, and we don't regress to what could be a worst case scenario. So that's my closing.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda. We need to have approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any edits or changes to the agenda as presented?
No changes. I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Attorney Gargosian, can you give us a report out from closed session?
Certainly, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss employee appointment, specifically for the city manager position. No reportable action was taken.
Great, thank you very much. All right, now we need to have an approval for reading resolutions and ordinances by title only. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Now we'll move on to the minutes of the May 27th meeting. Madam Clerk, did you receive any edits to the minutes for May 27th?
Mr. Mayor, the city clerk's office did not receive any requests for changes.
Great. Any from the dais here? Great. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
All right, okay. So 4 ayes, 1 abstention. Great. Now we'll move on to city mayor and city council reports. Who would like to go first tonight?
I can start.
Great.
I attended the Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, primarily because residents had reached out about concern of one of the projects that was on the agenda, or the project that was on the agenda, which was for a redevelopment of a property on Baldwin. And so I attended to understand better the proposed project. After deliberation, as is their practice and some very thoughtful comments, the Planning Commission did decline the application for the project, and so that was the reportable action from that meeting.
Great.
And I want to thank Councilmember Krebs and the mayor for filling in for me at the Planning Commission. I had graduation at the college I work at, couldn't make it. So I think the mayor's going to have a few comments about it. And that's my report.
Great.
On June 4th, I attended the Sierra Madre Chamber of Commerce board meeting. As I said, the chamber is really trying to reinvent themselves and get a little bit more active with the business community and the city. And some of the things that were discussed, they were discussing our presentation that we received at the last meeting regarding the parking meter ballards and how we approved, I guess we approved, I don't even know what we approved, but we approved going forward with seeing what a pilot program would look like, I guess is what we'd say. So there's concerns from the business, usually mainly positive, but they requested that either staff or the city council would consider whether still if 20-minute parking actually makes sense, given how long people go into businesses, if it's 20 minutes or 25, 30, just looking at that policy to see if it makes sense, not abolishing the time parking by any means, but maybe looking at the time. And also maybe a number of time spots, just to look at it, see if it all is making sense in the current way we do business. Also, they are doing a business community survey, mainly for their events, having understanding from their events. A lot of this was predicated off the Cosmont report, and they took that Cosmont report seriously, and they want to make sure they're implementing things that make sense. So they are going to do a survey amongst the business community, and they also want to ask questions regarding parking on that survey as well. And they said they'd let us know what the results were. On June 5th, I attended the Senior Community Commission meeting. They're changed a couple things to take note of. They're changing the date of the July meeting to July 10th because July 3rd is obviously an important day here in town. They did their after action on the Older American Award reception. Their Senior rock concert, I think it's the Beatles tribute band, will be on June 29th. And they'd also requested an update on the RFP of our city's transportation plan. They generally do an update on the transportation committee, and they're curious as to where we are on that RFP. And finally, and importantly, they only have one application for 2 spots on the Senior Community Commission. It's 2 now, so now it's 2 for 2 spots. We generally like to see 3 applications per opening. So if you know anybody that's interested in serving on our Senior Community Commission, or if you're interested, please fill out an application. We'll be making those appointments, I think, at the next meeting. So
What's the age requirement?
I don't know that there is an age requirement.
There is not for the Senior Community Commission, there isn't a minimum age. It's open to anyone who would like to.
And there's 2 openings.
There are 2 vacancies effective July 1st, and we received our second application today. The minimum before we can bring to council is 3 applications.
If you'd like to see at least one more, please. They're very active. It's a very, very fun commission. And finally, on June 7th, I attended the community yard sale that's organized by the Senior Community Commission. All the commissioners were there selling donuts and coffee. It's a great event. And what they've been doing for the second year in a row is, along with Kensington's having a symposium on aging in the park. They had that with like 25 vendors were there. It was really great. I don't know if they're vendors, but more informative people. And they also presented or introduced Heidi Hartman as the Older American of the Year at that event as well, just so everybody could see her and say hello. And that concludes my report.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I apologize for missing last meeting. Had a slight little injury. On 5/16, I attended the roundtable with Senator Perez and our city manager, Jose Reynoso, as well as other mayors and city council and city managers from around the 25th Senate District. It was a very exciting meeting. We were listening to all the different propositions that were being passed, and some of them have passed, including the ones that help secure infrastructure and hardening our homes and making us more fire resilient, as well as other disaster resiliency. So it's really great. It's really interesting to see that a lot of our cities, whether it's as large as Pasadena and Arcadia versus as small as Sierra Madre, San Marino, that we all had very similar issues, and we all really collaborated well and had really a lot of support for each other, which was nice to see. On 5/17, we finished the last CERT training for our new group of community emergency response team. We had 17, I believe, students, and they are ready to go. Anybody who wants to join CERT, you do not have to have gone through the CERT training yet. You can actually volunteer and learn as you go and then take the next class. I really encourage you guys to participate with that. And then on 5/21, this is the Foothill Workforce Development Board met, and they honored their outgoing executive director, Diane Russell Carter, who's retiring. And we had a joint meeting with them and our board, which renewed some positions. So if you guys are ever interested in your businesses being a part of really developing the workforce for the upcoming future, not just youth, but also adults currently, it'd be a great organization for you guys to look into. And then on 5/29, I attended a grant writing workshop from the California consulting firm, and it was nice to see that Sierra Madre already applies for a lot of these grants, as you'll see later in our budget. That really helps sustain our town. On 6/7, I also attended the senior symposium as well as the community yard sale, and it was the very last British Home June Fair, which I attended with the mayor, and he'll talk more about that. But it was really neat to see that. I bought 2 new fasteners. And that's about it.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So on June 5th, there was a Clean Power Alliance meeting, and at that meeting, we approved new rates for customers, which go into effect July 1st. And this extended a rate decrease that the Clean Power Alliance implemented back in March. The rates that we get through the Clean Power Alliance are continue to be competitive with SCE, while at the same time providing a higher percentage of renewable energy. And coming this October, we expect our rates to be even more competitive due to some rate changes that are anticipated from SCE. Also, the Clean Power Alliance, as a part of adopting their budget, is increasing investment into local programs, and Sierra Madre is working on a grant for fleet electrification. So that will be an exciting thing there. On June 5th, I actually watched the Planning Commission meeting, and the only thing I would add to that was that there was a legislation update from Attorney Garagosian. It was the third of 3, and that included bills that update the expiration date for entitlements, enforcement provisions for the housing element, which is important for our regional needs housing assessment, or RENA, related to posting bonds, a challenge that challenge affordable housing projects, expansion of the definition of disapproval of housing projects, and requirements to update city plans like the circulation element, conservation element, and open space element. And I know city is working on at least two, I think they're working on all three of those. So we're going to have all those plans that will come before us here in the future. As Mayor Pro Tem said, I was at the British Home Fair, the British Home June Fair, and gave the opening remarks there. It was attended as it has been in past years, so it was delightful. And then I also gave an opening at the Kensington's second annual Symposium on Aging, as well as a community yard sale. And there was just a large number, as Councilmember Garcia said, that there was just a large number of service providers there with information on aging, as well as a huge involvement from the community in the yard sale. We have a couple of city announcements on events. We heard a little bit about them, but we have the summer concert series is back. June 15th will be the New Romantics. It's a Taylor Swift cover band. And on June 22nd, the Acme Time Machine, a 50s and 60s rock and roll dance party. All of our summer concerts go from 6 to 8 p.m. And then get your chairs and blankets ready for movies in the park. We've got Moana 2 on June 20th in Memorial Park, and the movie will start at dusk. As was mentioned, we are accepting applications for senior commissions, and we have 2 vacancies effective July 1st. Your voice matters, and we really hope that people put in their applications for it. The senior commissions like to say that they are the funnest commission that's out there. I think that that is probably true, but I get myself in trouble by saying that with other commissions. All right. So now we typically just review the Public Participation Code of Conduct. If you wish to make public comments, we ask that you fill out a yellow comment card there in the back of the room. As you're doing that, please take a look at the back of it for the Code of Conduct, talking about how we like to conduct our meetings here in Sierra Madre. All right, with that, then we will move on to public comment for any item that is not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment cards for items that are not on the agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 speaker cards submitted for items not on the agenda. The first of the 3 is from Robert Gutierrez.
Hello, members of the City Council. I appreciate your time. Well, my name is Robert Gutierrez, and I live at 373 West Sierra Madre Boulevard. And I'm here tonight on behalf of my neighbors, mothers, fathers, retirees, working families, and children who live near the 24-hour laundromat at 370 West Sierra Madre Boulevard. We're a community that values peace, safety, and mutual respect, but for years we've been forced to endure late-night disturbances that are degrading our quality of life. I bring with me a petition signed by dozens of residents who are no longer willingly to silently tolerate the consequences of this laundromat's overnight operations. These concerns are not new. Many in our neighborhood have reached out directly to the owner, Sharon Sager, expressing their frustrations and asking for help. Despite the efforts, the problems persist. What we're experiencing is not an occasional inconvenience. It is a sustained pattern of overnight disruption, car alarms blaring at 2 a.m., loud music from cars parked out in front, people yelling and arguing in the streets, and on some nights even physical altercations and arrests. We found empty beer cans and broken bottles and the smell of drugs drifting into our homes. Children, seniors, and working adults are losing sleep night after night and waking up groggy, anxious, and unrested. To make matters worse, there is no on-site security, no one monitoring what happens to the parking lot during these hours, yet the burden of dealing with the fallout falls squarely on us, the residents. I've spoken with Chief Barrientos and others at Sierra Madre Police Department, and while we've been encouraged to report disturbances, the reality is this: when it's 3 a.m. and we're jolted awake, most of us just want to get back to sleep, not wait on hold with dispatch for an incident that may be over by the time help arrives. Let me be clear, this is not about shutting down a business. We value the laundromat and recognize the essential service it provides, but we believe there is a responsible, reasonable compromise. No one truly needs to do laundry at 3 a.m. if it comes at the cost of a neighborhood's peace, safety, and well-being. We are asking that the city reduce the laundromat's operation hours from 24 hours a day to perhaps 6 to 11 p.m., a time frame that still allows for full accessibility without sacrificing our nights. We understand that there may currently be no code preventing a business from operating 24 hours a day. For that reason, we respectfully request City Council consider creating a city ordinance that addresses overnight businesses to enhance community safety. The laundromat should serve our neighborhood, not disrupt it. Please hear our voices and see our signatures and understand our concerns. Help us restore peace, safety, and a good night's sleep to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Hannah Youngbauer.
Hi, Council. Hi, Mayor. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Youngbauer, and I'm a part of the committee of newly formed artists for the Sierra Madre Art Walk. We are 12 local artists and enthusiasts set on continuing a tradition beloved by this town. For the past few months, we've been meeting with local businesses and local artists, harnessing the creative energy of this town for a night we all hope you will attend. Our summer walk will be held Friday, June 20th from 4 to 8 p.m. 36 local businesses will stay open and become galleries for the 51 artists we will be hosting, from oil painters to watercolors, jewelers to printmakers. Many of them art with focused on or inspired by the themes and nature landscape of this beloved town. There will also be 7 musical acts throughout the night, from jazzy clarinet and acoustic guitar to 70s funk. Our community is invited to use our maps from our website as they stroll the streets from East Montecito through Kirsten Court all the way down to Auburn, enjoying all this art and the town has to offer. Maps will also be available, paper copies, for the day of participation at all of these businesses. We would like to give a huge shout out to Chamber, as they have been very supportive, and our creative institutions, the Creative Arts Group, the BEG, LMF, and Sierra Madre Playhouse. They are the anchors of this creative community. We are also very, very enthused to invite everyone to follow us on Instagram as well as our Facebook at sierramadreartwalk.com, and we hope to see you all on the 20th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Youngbauer.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Fire Chief Bartlett.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Lowe, council members Garcia, Goss, and Krebs. I'm here tonight on behalf of Sierra Madre Fire Safe Council to share a brief progress update in the absence of Chair Gavin Lee, who is at another commitment this evening but did want to attend to provide this himself. After months of organizing, the Fire Safe Council has made significant strides towards formalizing and mobilizing fire safety efforts in our community. Last week, the Fire Safe Council's 3 trustees signed the official declaration of charitable trust, enabling them to file for an EIN tax ID and seek formal recognition from the state of California. With the addition of their 5th Fire Safe Council member, they now have a quorum and will soon convene on the first official meeting to adopt their bylaws. A draft is already in development using Fire Safe Council templates and will be reviewed by their advisor. As we all know, a very important volunteer here, Robert Jurdy, is going to be signed on as their advisor, as he has a little bit of familiarity with the previous Fire Safe Council as well. The Fire Safe Council is grateful to our city clerk, Laura Aguilar, who has volunteered to act as a liaison for the city and notarize necessary documents. They also wanted to give thanks to Captain Basillos and our administrative analyst, Amy Sue, for their support from the fire department. A generous donation will also allow them to open a bank account and cover initial operating costs. The Fire Safe Council has launched a pilot program on the Signal app, which will serve as the backbone for a future block captain model. And plans are also underway for a website, Instagram account, and secure server to expand outreach and public education. The first official Fire Safe Council meeting is being scheduled to confirm roles and launch community recruitment. And the Fire Safe Council is energized, supported, and aligned with the city's fire preparedness goals. And on behalf of the Fire Safe Council, they wanted to thank you, the council, for your continued support in helping them build a more resilient Sierra Madre. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any more comments for items not on the agenda?
No other speaker cards were submitted, Mr. Mayor.
Great, okay. Then we'll go on to our presentations. Our first presentation is for a proclamation in recognition of Armenian genocide. So if we can get the representatives to come up for that, and we'll go ahead and read our proclamation. First, then you can make your statement. No, stay right here, and then we'll get a picture. Great. All right. Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. Let me just move this here so we get it so it's on there. Okay. Whereas from 1915 to 1924, 1.5 million Armenians lost their lives at the hands of the Ottoman Empire as a part of a systemic program of genocide. And whereas the Armenian genocide is a tragic example of what fear and intolerance of others lead to. The city of Sierra Madre is dedicated to remembering the atrocities committed against the Armenian nation and all humanity. And whereas Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day commemorates this tragedy and helps people understand the need to eliminate fear and other hatred from our community. And whereas, as we remember the past, we must dedicate ourselves to rebuilding a greater future by educating our community about the Armenian genocide and other crimes against humanity as a testament to mankind's indomitable spirit. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Sierra Madre celebrates the Armenian spirit and hereby pays tribute to and recognizes those who have suffered as a result of the Armenian genocide, approved this 10th day of June 2025 by the City Council of the City of Sierra Madre, Mayor Robert Parkhurst, Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe, Council members Edward Garcia, Jean Goss, and Kelly Krebs. I'll give that to you and we'll be back in a minute. Go for it.
Hello? Hello? Oh. Do I need to get closer?
There you go.
You're
There.
good.
Okay. There's the secret. FYI, for the parking, I live in Pasadena, and we call Pasadena a fine city, if you know what I mean. You are not like that, though. I'm jealous, very jealous. Anyway, on that note, good evening. My name is Danny Donabedian. I'm the chairperson of the Armenian National Committee of America, Pasadena. Mayor Parkhurst, Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe, esteemed council members, honored guests. Benjamin Franklin said the following: "Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are." As we commemorate the 110th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, let us be mindful of the current controversies and concerns the world is going through, the precarious ideological and political changes that are afoot, and that we should not lose sight of a genocide that took place during World War I, the Armenian genocide, perpetrated by none other than Turkey. Sadly, in the case of the 1.5 million victims of the Armenian genocide, which we memorialize today, the world has not held Turkey accountable and has not demanded justice in the way they claim they all are for justice. We are hopeful and working diligently to see to it that justice and accountability do become real and tangible, with the status quo discarded into the dustbin of history. Every year, members of the Armenian National Committee of America Pasadena chapter assemble here before you with conviction, in solidarity with the Armenian American community, in pursuit of truth and justice, to raise awareness of the Armenian genocide and the Armenian cause deserve, and to provide assurances to the esteemed members of the Armenian diaspora that the ANCA will be there for them, will never abandon them, and that we will pursue their cause in perpetuity until one day we retrieve our beautiful ancestral lands. On behalf of the ANCA Pasadena, I'd like to extend my profound gratitude to the City of Sierra Madre for passing the Genocide Proclamation. I would also like to thank this esteemed dais with its mayor, the Honorable Robert Parkhurst, the Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe, distinguished members of the City Council, for inviting the ANCA Pasadena to today's ever so important day of remembrance, to reflect on the 1.5 million fallen martyrs of the Armenian nation, whose lives, even after 110 years, matter as much today as it did on April 24th, 1915. A note of appreciation, if I may. I'd like to personally extend my sincere gratitude to City Manager, the Honorable Jose Reynoso, whose phone call inviting us to receive the Genocide Proclamation was the reason we find ourselves here today. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to take a second and get a picture with you with the proclamation with all the council. Anyone else?
You won't block me.
Yeah.
Mayor, before Danny steps away, we do have a representative from Assemblymember Harabedian's office here.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you for that reminder.
Good afternoon or good evening, Council. My name is Adriana Perez. I'm from the Office of Assemblymember John Harabedian. I am here to thank the City of Sierra Madre for your leadership in acknowledging historical fact and supporting the Armenian community. Assemblymember Harabedian, a son of Sierra Madre, is honored to serve as chair of the California Legislative Armenian Caucus as the only Armenian in the legislature. He is committed to uplifting our strong and resilient Armenian community in the San Gabriel Valley and throughout California. And an essential part of that is remembering and paying tribute to the 1.5 million innocent Armenians who were mercilessly slaughtered by the Ottoman Empire in the first genocide of the 20th century. Even though the Armenian genocide started 110 years ago, modern-day Turkey and Azerbaijan are determined to continue the annihilation of the Armenian people. In just the last few years, Azerbaijan illegally blockaded the only passage between Artsakh, the native homeland of 120,000 ethnic Armenians, and the Republic of Armenia before invading Artsakh and killing or exiling its citizens. We must continue to stand with the Armenian community in the United States and around the world until the day when true justice is served and all Armenians can live without fear of violence from these aggressors. Thank you again for shining a light on this ongoing fight for truth and peace in our world.
Thank you so much. Do you have something for the Armenian genocide? Oh, okay. No worries, no worries. All right, so we'll go on to our next presentation. A proclamation to Sierra Madre Reserve Officer Mitch Thomas for his retirement after 40 years. So, if you could come on up, Mr. Thomas. He's already retired.
I love Hannah.
All right.
Sit over here. Invite his family to come up here.
Yeah, we'll get him in a second.
Perez?
You know, if I sit down, I can't get back up.
Chief
Okay,
Brigadier,
good,
go ahead.
good evening, Mayor and City Council. So I had written my own speech for Mitch Thomas. However, he gave me his doctorate thesis here that he wrote on his behalf. I tried to convince him that we would go with mine that was a little shorter. However, I'm going to read his on his behalf. That's what he requested. So here we go. I started my law enforcement career at Arcadia PD Police Department on May 21st, on my 21st birthday, 1977, my hometown police department. My first day at Sierra Madre PD was on May 29th, 1984. I started in law enforcement when bullet loops were still how we carried your extra 12 bullets. When I started at Sierra Madre PD, we had 6 bricks, portable radios, and 3 police cars, one of which was always at city yards for repairs. In my early years, I made a proposal to the chief of police for me to acquire, maintain, and operate a police motor. The proposal was approved to cost the city nothing. The out-of-pocket cost was over $15,000. Since the department only had 3 police cars, I purchased and installed lights, siren, and a removable decal on the white detective's car to make it a 4th patrol vehicle. When the department pickup truck needed replacement, I donated a used pickup truck as a replacement. As with the detective's car, I purchased and installed lights, siren, and necessary emergency products. That truck lasted until the current truck was purchased out of grant money. One night, while having a monthly reserve meeting, we received a call of a barricaded subject. Having time to only go to our lockers for equipment, everyone grabbed their equipment and traveled to the scene. Our sergeant teamed us up and advised where to go for our perimeter coverage. We held a perimeter until Sheriff's SEB, Special Enforcement Bureau, arrived and replaced us. SEB took over the scene and resolved the matter. I was called in to assist on a double homicide. A son murdered both of his parents in their home. He fled the murder scene but was arrested years later in New Hampshire and extradited. Over my years at Sierra Madre, I have worked multiple brush fires. I remember one, I was coaching my daughter's girls' softball game in Lower Arcadia, and I saw smoke in the mountains and above the city. I called in, and I was advised to respond to the station. The Madre Del Rosa fire was a big one that burned right to the rear of the Montessori. It was famous before the recent Eaton fire. When the Sierra Madre earthquake struck, I immediately climbed on my motor and responded for service. We lost some chimneys and unreinforced masonry structures, but sustained no major injuries or loss of life. Over my years of service, I have many times escorted the Sierra Madre Rose Float from the city to its pre-parade waiting spot. Very interesting to be leading, going directly head-on against traffic to escort a very large, slow-moving object. The detail was always 100% successful. My years of service on the motor were 25 years. Were always a success with the exception of one 4th of July when a uniformed Boy Scout with his father thought it would be funny to soak the officer on the motor with a super soaker water gun. Besides being soaked to my core, the steam coming off my motor engine made the detail quite hot and unpleasant. In 2006, I offered to design and get approvals for a Centennial uniform badge. Even though the department is small in size, trying to come up with with multiple designs to choose from and get 100% unanimous support was like hearing cats. The final product was unique for our valley, and I thought very worthy of the Centennial occasion. My favorite assignment was always uniform patrol, as it offered me direct contact with the community. I always took it upon myself when dealing with the public to treat them as I would want to be treated. And I hope that they ended with a more positive thought about the police department. It worked out well. I remember a traffic stop in front of St. Rita's. The young male immediately started out angry. He was resistant to giving me his license, registration, and proof of insurance. We worked to the outcome, to overcome that, and I ultimately wrote a citation. That individual wrote a letter to the chief of police, but not for what you are thinking. He said I was very courteous, professional officer, and positively commending me about the traffic stop. Lastly, I would like to thank the Sierra Madre Police Department for becoming my second family. Over my 41 years of service, over 2/3 of my life, we have become very close and bonded. Thank you again from Mitchell Thomas, serial number 201. Thank you again. I think we're forever indebted to him for his service.
And now we have a proclamation for you. So, Mitchell Thomas. Whereas tonight we gather to recognize and honor Reserve Commander Mitchell Thomas for his extraordinary and unwavering commitment to public service, marking an incredible milestone of 41 years with the Sierra Madre Police Department. And whereas throughout more than 4 decades, Commander Thomas has exemplified the highest standards of dedication and integrity, faithfully serving the community while balancing the responsibilities of a civilian career and family life. And whereas, during a time of significant challenge in law enforcement, including the advent of new technologies, evolving strategies in community policing, and the growing complexity of public safety, Commander Thomas remained a steadfast and adaptive leader committed to the core values of professionalism, integrity, and service. And whereas Commander Thomas's leadership extended far beyond his own duties, through his mentorship and guidance, he helped shape and inspire generations of officers, leaving an enduring legacy within the department. And whereas the impact of his service is deeply felt not only on the strength and unity of the Sierra Madre Police Reserve Unit, but in the countless lives he touched, the trust he earned, and the example he set for those who follow in his footsteps. And whereas Commander Thomas represents the very best of law enforcement, a steady presence, a compassionate leader, and a guardian of public trust. Now, therefore, on this day, we, the Sierra Madre Police Department, together with the City of Sierra Madre, do hereby extend our profound gratitude to Reserve Commander Mitchell Thomas for his 41 years of distinguished service, his selfless devotion to duty, and for the lasting difference he has made to the community. Presented this 10th day of June 2025 by the City of Sierra Madre, Mayor Robert Parkhurst, Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe, Council Members Edward Garcia, Jean Goss, and Kelly Creeps.
On behalf of the Sierra Madre Police Department, we're presenting him and we're retiring his police officer badge.
Oh.
A big picture. What I would say to the group, this was my uniform badge, pink. This is the centennial badge that I developed for the centennial celebration.
Want me to get the council as well?
Come on, Ken. Let me give this to you here. So both that and that, and you guys in the picture. There we go. I'm holding behind you. I'll take that picture. There we go. All right.
We're not quite done yet. We've got one more.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so very much. I have you. you.
Okay. And Chief, you're not done yet. You've got another one.
Alrighty. Thank you again for the opportunity. We've got one more. This is a retirement, and I feel very humble and honored to be presented. So today we take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate the long-standing service of Officer Ken Berry, a valued member of the Sierra Madre Police Department. Ken began his journey with the department in July 1994 as a reserve police officer. In May 1999, he became a full-time officer and has served the city with consistency and commitment ever since. Over the past 31 years, Ken has filled a variety of roles to meet the department's needs, from patrol and traffic to dispatch, fleet services, and technical support. Ken has shown a willingness to step in whenever help was needed. Despite working with limited resources, Ken demonstrated a practical approach to keeping things on track. His knowledge of day-to-day operations made him a reliable go-to for any routine matters within the department, whether it was handling traffic enforcement or supporting technical operations. Ken carried out his duties with professionalism and dependability. His contributions have helped keep the department running smoothly and have supported our mission in serving the community. Ken, your steady presence and teamwork over the years have made a positive difference. While your retirement marks the end of an era, your work here will be remembered. On behalf of the Sierra Madre Police Department and the City of Sierra Madre, thank you for your years of service. We wish you a fulfilling and well-earned retirement after 31 years.
Go for it.
Go first.
On behalf also of the Sierra Madre Police Department, we're retiring Ken Berry's badge. And this is just a little token of our appreciation to him, so he doesn't forget us.
We're not done with you yet. We have a certificate of recognition for you as well. Officer Kenneth Berry. Whereas today we gather to honor and celebrate the retirement of Officer Kenneth Berry, whose distinguished service to the Sierra Madre Police Department spans over 3 decades. And whereas Officer Berry began his law enforcement career in July of 1994 as a reserve police officer, and in May of 1999 proudly became a full-time member of the department. And whereas over the past 31 years, Officer Berry has exemplified dedication, professionalism, and flexibility, serving the department in numerous vital roles, including patrol, traffic enforcement, which he's notorious for. I'll come back to that in a second. Dispatch, fleet services, and technical support. And whereas Officer Berry's deep institutional knowledge, resourcefulness, and practical approach to daily challenges have made him an indispensable part of the department, earning him the trust and respect of his colleagues and the community alike. And whereas through his unwavering commitment, Officer Berry has played an essential role in keeping the department running efficiently, supporting both its mission and its people with reliability and integrity. And whereas his steady presence, can-do spirit, and willingness to serve wherever needed have left a lasting impact on the Sierra Madre Police Department and the City of Sierra Madre. Now, therefore, on this day, we, the members of the Sierra Madre Police Department, together with the City of Sierra Madre, do hereby recognize and commend Officer Kenneth Berry for his outstanding service, express our sincere gratitude for his contributions, and extend our heartfelt best wishes for a happy, healthy, and well-deserved retirement. Presented this 10th day of June, 2025, by the City Council of the City of Sierra Madre, Mayor Robert Parkhurst, Mayor Pro Tem Christine Lowe, Council members Edward Garcia, Jean Goss, and Kelly Krebs. So Officer Berry was one of the few officers who was willing to go and do and enforce parking violations and traffic violations in the city, some of the biggest complaints we've gotten, but it also made him one of the people that people did not like running into in the city. We will miss you sincerely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Let's bring up the police department again and do another picture with them.
Congratulations.
All right, we are on to our fourth and final presentation of the night. Chief Bartlett, we'll bring you up.
I'm not retiring yet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Lowe, Council Members Goss and Garcia and Krebs. Today we gather and recognize and celebrate an individual whose dedication and service have left an incredible mark on the city of Sierra Madre and our fire department. That's Fire Engineer Ted Walters. Ted's journey with us began 19 years ago when he joined the Sierra Madre Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter. From day one, he exemplified a deep commitment to protecting this community. His hard work, reliability, and passion for the job quickly earned him the respect of his peers and led to his promotion to the rank of fire engineer, where he continued his service in a full-time capacity. But Ted's contributions go far beyond responding to calls. He was a behind-the-scenes cornerstone of our operations, instrumental in ensuring our fire apparatus were always maintained, always ready, and always capable of getting our crews safely to where they needed to be. His attention to detail and pride in his work played a crucial role in keeping both the public and his fellow firefighters safe. Ted didn't just work here, he lived here, served here, and cared deeply for this community as a neighbor and friend. His presence has been a constant reminder of what true public service looks like. And now, after nearly 2 decades of steadfast dedication, we say thank you. Thank you, Ted, for the long hours, the mentorship, the pride you took in the job, and the heart you brought to everything you did. On behalf of the Sierra Madre Fire Department, the City of Sierra Madre, and those whose lives you've touched, we congratulate you on a well-earned retirement and wish you all the best in the next chapter. Ted, you will always be part of this fire family, and congratulations and thank you. Knowing Ted, he's going to have a lot of words to express, but I doubt it. One of his big things was, do I have to speak? You have the opportunity. Thank you. All right.
And so I have asked Mayor Pro Tem Lowe to go ahead and give this proclamation, and she'll explain why here in a minute.
Engineer Walters. Engineer Walters and I worked together for about 9 years, if not more, over the last years when we were both volunteering, and been on many strike teams together, gone through like a lot of stuff together, and I'm just so proud of you, Ted. So, Ted Walters, whereas Ted Walters has honorably served the Sierra Madre, city of Sierra Madre and its residents for 19 years with unwavering dedication and professionalism. Whereas Ted began his journey in the Sierra Madre Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter, and through steadfast commitment and exemplary service, rose to the rank of fire engineer, serving the community in a full-time capacity. And whereas Ted was instrumental in ensuring the readiness and reliability of the department's apparatus, dedicating countless hours to the maintenance and care of the equipment vital to the safety of the community and the effectiveness of the fire department. Whereas beyond his professional contributions, Ted served not only as a firefighter, but also as a neighbor and resident of Sierra Madre, embodying the true spirit of community service and civic pride. And whereas Ted's integrity, technical expertise, and compassionate nature has left a lasting impact on the Sierra Madre Fire Department and the greater community it serves. Now, therefore, on this day, the Sierra Madre Fire Department and the City of Sierra Madre do extend their deepest gratitude to you, Engineer Ted Walters, for his outstanding service and dedication, and offer their warmest wishes for a happy, healthy, and fulfilling retirement. I also want to thank your family because, as you all know, as a public servant, you are not just in this by yourself. Your family has to endure you not being home a lot, and they're part of the fire family too. So I want to say thank you to Raquel, and thank you so much for all your service.
Thank you.
And Ted, as you're aware, we're not going to be cheapskates, unlike the PD. Your badge is being retired. It is being properly displayed as we speak, and as you're aware, we're going to have a celebration next month for you. So.
Yes, we'd like to present the certificate of recognition for your service to your community. Congratulations on the fire. Yes, of course. Yeah.
So before we go on to the consent items, I'm going to take just a quick second. We've got all these retirements. I also want to state that tonight is our city manager, Jose Reynoso's last meeting. He's going to be leaving us for other opportunities. We will be honoring him at our next city council meeting, but I wanted to thank him for all of his service here tonight, and we'll go into greater detail in 2 weeks. But this is your last meeting, and we'll miss you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're here.
All right, consent items. Madam City Clerk, could you read the consent items by title only?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council is being asked to consider 4 items this evening. The first of the 4 is Resolution 2537 approving certain demands. It is staff's recommendation that the City Council approve Resolution 25-37. The second item is consent item B. It's the consideration of the second reading of Ordinance 1483 adopting the fire hazard severity zone map as designated by the California State Marshal. It is staff's recommendation that the City Council adopt the second reading of Ordinance 1483. The third item on the consent calendar is consideration of also a second reading, Ordinance 1481, amending Chapter 3.40, Claims and Claims Procedures, of Title III Revenue and Finance of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code to authorize the city manager to allow, compromise, or settle claims up to $50,000. It is city staff's recommendation that the city council should approve the second reading of ordinance 1481. And lastly is consent item D. It's consideration of a public improvement agreement to perform off-site improvements on Carter Avenue as part of the Meadows at Bailey Canyon project. It is staff's recommendation that the city council consider approval of this agreement for off-site improvements on Carter Avenue as part of the Meadows at Bailey Canyon project. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, do we have any questions on consent item A? Consent item B? Consent item C? Consent item D? I have a couple questions on consent item D. So could someone give us a briefing on how we got to this point in this agreement? What was the process to get to that?
Mayor, if I may, I'd like City Attorney to respond to that.
Great.
Mayor, as you know, the City Council entered into a development agreement in September of 2022 with respect to the Mar de la Rosa project located near the monastery. Pursuant to, I believe, Section 4I of that agreement, the city was to enter into a public improvement agreement, the document you have before you, in order to develop off-site improvements along Carter Avenue. The plan was that after the development agreement's approved, the developer is to use their best efforts to go to Los Angeles County and obtain an easement in order to develop that site. The developer obtained that easement, and now the second step of this is entering into this agreement with the city to make sure that they pay for all costs related to these off-site improvements, that they indemnify the city if there's any issues related to the off-site improvements, and then once that agreement's been approved, only then can we look at the process of actually beginning to expand that Carter Avenue out in order to create sidewalks, et cetera, as contemplated in development agreement and the specific plan.
How did we get to this off-site improvements? Like, what was it? Was this something that the developer brought to us, or?
So the off-site improvements were initially introduced into the development agreement by the Planning Commission at the request of the community. Members of the community were concerned that that project needed two ingress and egress methods. And so as a result, the Planning Commission included that requirement for the off-site improvements to Carter Avenue, and the City Council eventually adopted it as part of the development agreement.
And were there any other community feedback or comments that were part of the development of the agreement that we're seeing before us tonight?
So to date, this agreement that you have before you was negotiated between staff and the applicant. We tried our best to stay true to the spirit of the development agreement as well as the comments that we've received to date.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, there's one follow-up.
Yes, please.
Just to clarify, because we've received a number of public comments in this regard, the anticipated widening and improvement project does not impede or impose upon any private property, is that correct?
Correct. This is going to be widened into the county public right-of-way.
Thank you.
Great.
One follow-up.
Yeah, please.
So let's say once this widening is completed, and we do read the public comment, and if we feel as though Grove Street is negatively impacted, we still have the opportunity to do something as a city to abate any type of, congestion or safety issues on Grove outside of this agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilmember. So the county has reviewed the plans and approved them. The applicant has submitted those plans to us. We will approve it as part of the building permit process, and there are conditions in there that allow us to limit whatever the impacts might be on residents if we've identified that there are impacts. So the conditions of approval for the building permit will allow us to exercise to limit those impacts on residents.
Would that include even moving the entrance to Bailey Canyon Park? Could that be something that could be contemplated as well?
It can be, because that's not part of the development
Yeah,
agreement or the
that's what I
specific plan.
thought. Okay, thank you.
I have one follow-up question too then. So this is not a new agreement, this is not a new plan that just went through planning checks, the planning department, this is something that was already pre-approved. We are now moving forward with certain aspects of it, and there was like slight modification because it couldn't be as wide as 5 feet for a sidewalk, correct?
So the slight modification came in with the minor variance. So the development agreement contemplates a process where you can be issued, the applicant can be issued a minor variance when the situation on the ground is different than what is contemplated on paper, which was the case here. The easement that was granted, the county basically placed limitations on how that offsite improvement can happen that we hadn't contemplated at the city level, and in order to accommodate the county's request, we granted a minor variance, which we included into the improvement agreement. And yes, the improvement agreement is simply the next step, the fulfillment of the development agreement's requirements.
That were already passed in 2022.
Correct.
And the sidewalk would still be ADA?
Correct, yes, per state law,
Thank you.
federal law.
Any other questions?
You had a question?
No, no.
All right. This is a public item, so we'll open up for public comment. Madam Clerk, do you have any comment cards for this item?
Mr. Mayor, there were 10 emails that were received by the city clerk's office and forwarded to the city council. There were 3 speaker cards submitted this evening. The first of the 3 is from Carolyn Brooks.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Brooks. I live at 271 Grove Street. I'm on the corner of Grandview and Grove, and I'm concerned about all the traffic coming down Grove Street. I've seen many times there could be a nice accident, and I'm very concerned about this section that you're gonna put up at Carter. I don't, if you wanna put a street through, put a barricade so that they can't come down Grove. Let them go down Lima Street. And from what I'm hearing today, everything I'm saying isn't gonna make any difference. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right.
For the conduct.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker card is from Wendy Thermos.
Before you start the clock, I believe I speak for a bunch of my neighbors, just saying. Because I've made an informal poll. My name is Wendy Thermos. I live at 420 Grove Street, half a block down from Bailey Canyon. Bailey Canyon Park. I have lived in the same house for over 20 years. As the plan is made for West Carter, the city needs to blunt the serious effects this project stands to cause on Grove Street, the adjacent street. I don't think it would be difficult to ameliorate this. Grove is a very narrow street. It simply can't handle any more traffic. When there are 2 parked cars anywhere along Grove Street, and when there are parked cars along Grove Street and 2 cars are coming from opposite directions, one of them has to pull over, and that's how narrow it is. This happens quite a lot already. I want to stress this point. Grove was never designed as a collector street. Collector, for those who don't know, is a term used in legally mandated general plans for through traffic. Please look at your own records. Grove was never designated as a collector street because it falls short of the formal requirements for one. Yet you're about to turn it into a collector street from what I've seen. Solution number 1. Grove needs to be blocked, as Carolyn just mentioned. Grove needs to be blocked to through traffic with signage and a bump out curb or some kind of barrier up by Bailey Canyon. This is simple and inexpensive. Solution number 2. The Bailey Canyon Park entrance should be relocated to the west side of the parking lot. It's currently on the south side. This change needs to be made even without the Meadows project. Since the pandemic, Bailey Park has been flooded with hikers on the weekends. Scores of parked cars have overflowed onto Grove Street every weekend, bringing commotion and clogged traffic to what once was a quiet neighborhood. It literally turns Grove into a one-lane street, and a dangerous one at that. Moving the park entrance over to Oakcrest, where there are no houses and ample street parking, is a smart and simple solution that can be done while you're reworking that whole thing on West Carter. I'd like to conclude by thanking the City Council for listening to our concerns, and I hope you will demonstrate in a meaningful way that our concerns are not just being listened to, but acted upon. Thank you very much. Oh, I have a copy.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam City Clerk, do we have any other public comments?
We do. The third speaker card is from Deb Sheridan.
All right, Ms. Sheridan.
Good evening, council members. Deb Sheridan, Valley Vista Drive. You are discussing the widening of Carter. Most people that I talk to do not want sidewalks. They only want the minimum number of trees cut down and Bailey Canyon Park minimally cut into. We need to know the traffic pattern of the projected 500 car trips per day, not including those visitors to Bailey Canyon Park, as you just heard. What will happen to Grove, which is a narrow street, as I said, you've already heard about that. And my plea to you this evening is to please do not rush into this. You've heard from one resident already the other day about the toxicity inside their home, and several others who were very concerned about this as well. And lately, another resident discovered in just a routine check of their pool water that there was copper in the water. We are asking you to sample the soil you will be digging into and disturbing into the air, and probably into the neighbors' yards as well at times. USC has launched the Clean Project. Any of us who are concerned can send a soil sample to them at no cost, per Jerry West, who is a professor of earth sciences and environmental studies. Quote, "The initiative aims to quickly identify potential environmental hazards like lead left by these fires. With the Army Corps skipping post-cleanup soil testing, there's a lot of uncertainty. Data will be key to protecting health and determining next steps," unquote. Eaton Canyon is closed indefinitely, and trespassers will be fined $5,000. You council members banned all leaf blowers because of the toxins in the air. I will repeat the professor's words. There is a lot of uncertainty right now. Please keep your residents' health and safety your #1 priority. Do not be pressured into a hasty move. And once again, I thank you very much for sitting up there and keeping us safe, and that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. Madam Clerk, do we have any other comment cards?
One was just submitted and another. Thank you. The next speaker is Mary Jane Bakulski.
Good evening, Council, and thank you. This is late entry for me because my husband and I, who've lived here from '65 and built our home, I helped him. Linus is right here. Problem.
Thank you.
And I'm just disheartened.
Thank you.
And my heart is heavy with this situation because I've battled it from the get-go. Chris, you know that. and council members, many of them are new. We built on the corner of Grove and Fairview and were able to enter in 72. Most of the neighbors have either deceased or they have left Sierra Madre. We're still there. I have called multiple times on situations that were not only lethal but dangerous, and no easy response. We lost everything in this Eaton Canyon fire. Everything. My home is gutted. I lost pictures, clothing, all of it. We were dispatched to Claremont. By the time I got back here, and I got Linus out, who has got profound hearing loss, the worst nursing job I ever had in my life, is to try to get him out with 5 to 10 minutes with the blowhorn and get down Grove Street and get out of there before the fire could have taken over us. By the grace of God and divine intervention, that fire went up and over, straight up to the monastery, over to Upper Hastings, and then I lost track from there. But at that time, and prior to that time, I have begged to have more vigilance in that area. I have gone myself and closed the gate and asked people to come up and close it because it is so dangerous, and every time is not every time. It just doesn't happen. We also have people who are taking over Grove Street that are out of the community, so that Linus and I have to go, if we want to have a 30-minute walk, we have to go over to Caltech campus to be safe. It is a dangerous street. It is too doggone narrow to have 2 cars parked on both sides of that street. You people know it, the department knows it, and the fire department knows it, and the monastery knows it. When we built, we were told, and I asked, is there going to be any situation where there would be a danger? And would the monastery be building? And at that time, back in 65 and 72, I was told by Father Pat that will never happen.
Ms.
Well, it's
Bukowski,
happened.
Could you wrap up your statement?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
But I am urging you and begging you. I have nothing. I am living out of the bottom of my trunk of my car. I have a husband that's hearing impaired, and we've lived there since 72, and I helped him build that house. We can move on, but it has been a serious, unsafe place from the get-go. We had the Henderson family that were buried alive in Bailey Canyon, and we lived through that. And I'm telling you, it is not a situation that should be ignored and not addressed seriously.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
very
comments.
much for letting me speak. We are still 6 months with asbestos and lead out of our house at a hotel, me taking the clothing out of the trunk, and Altadena people being shoved in with their animals and their kids and on the way out. The one thing that did happen is that the national person from Automobile Club, who was in charge of all 3 of the fires, and I also had people in Palisades, all 3 of those fires.
Ms. Bukowski, could you please wrap
I
it
heard
up?
from AA told me, Mary Jane, this is the worst disaster in California ever. And I agreed. But some of these people, I could do a first seller on going in and out of that elevator, and all I have to do is say How are you doing? Thank you very much. I hope you will take this seriously because it is not safe. It is irresponsible, both fire and danger. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who owns the Bailey Canyon and who controls basically inside the canyon?
Bailey Canyon is owned by the county, and we have a permit to operate.
Okay.
I was told that the fire department didn't own anything.
No. The LA
That
County.
above the dam was forestry. I asked forestry, they said, you people were.
No.
Now, who's gonna clarify that? I tried to find out where the boundaries were.
I'll give you a call.
Thank you for your comments.
I'll give you a call with all that reporting.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris. I hope you will take this seriously because we've lived here, we raised Craig here, we've been a part of Sierra Madre we've been around the corner, okay? And if anyone had told me that at 85 and 87 with hearing impairment that I would be absolutely homeless, I would say, you're crazy as a bedbug. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker card is from Sherry Wheelock.
Hello. I'm going to shorten this down. I think Wendy made it very clear what the problem is on Grove Street. I live at 436 Grove Street, and I've been a resident for over 30 years. And I'm very concerned about traffic and the top of Grove Street, where Carter is going to go. I'm very concerned about that in terms of traffic. And I am urging you to consider putting in barriers on the sides so that the cars that are on Carter do not take a turn, a right turn or a left turn onto Grove, because the street can't hold a whole bunch of traffic, car traffic coming from our neighbor, the I'm sorry, the Meadows. People will be coming down and they will want to go take the first right, and that will put them on Grove Street. And the more that they do that is going to be very dangerous. I would totally agree with that. So I hope that you consider that put a barrier there of some kind, whether it's a curb punch out or something like that, to discourage people from coming in at the top of Grove. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you for your comments. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Heather Allen is the next speaker.
Sorry, I can't come to the podium. I have an injury. I can't walk back away. So I'll do my best to speak loud.
Can we bring your microphone?
Okay.
This is a matter of housekeeping. I want to mention that I went through 4 pins here and we're all dry. Makes me wonder if you want to get public comment. My name is Heather Allen. I've lived on Top Road for 52 years, pardon me. We moved in when I was young. I don't think I've ever been as disheartened as I am tonight at this council meeting, and I've been here for a long time. Through Measure B, through the Skilled Nursing Center, through 1 Carter, losing the dial right. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. I've lived through 5 fires, pardon me. I've seen the fire department come down the road, hit a car as it came down. Last time I took footage of it. It was not during the fire, this did happen. I have footage of it. listening to the people at all. You have no regard for our quality of life. You have no regard for the wildlife in Sierra Madre. I don't know how you sleep at night. But I'll tell you what's really disheartening about the whole thing. We're going to live with the consequences of this. You're going to have to answer your neighbors for what you're doing to them. Let me say that again. You're going to have to answer for what's happening tonight. You are out of city's hands, so to speak. You are legally and morally responsible for what you are doing. You're in worse space than I am, really. Sherry's right, we have to have signs diverting the traffic from the road. I would urge you to read Glenn Hickman's email. He did a lot of research. He's really on top of this. Please listen to your residents. We've lived here a long time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any other comments?
Yes, one last one was submitted from Bob Spears.
Mr. Spears.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor's Council, esteemed staff, I'm the one from the Planning Commission that said this road needed to be cleaned up. The project needed a secondary means of egress.
Yes.
And the condition of Grove right now is substandard. 2 cars cannot get in and out quickly. So the road needs to be fixed. The other problem we have is that the citizens of Sierra Madre think that they can walk their dogs, walk everywhere in the middle of the street. That grove cannot take people walking in the middle of the street and handling traffic, and you will get some traffic in the future. So it needs to have an ADA compliant place for them to walk. So this is basic. Whether people turn down Grove or not, I don't know. And you can put a sign that says don't turn right, who cares? I doubt very much after they've done it once whether they'll do it again. They have a much better way of getting out of that situation by going down Lima. So the street is a problem. It needs to be addressed. They're going to have to tear it up anyway because there's infrastructure underneath it that's going to connect into that development. I know, last time I remember that they're going to take down or move or modify the stone fence that is the entrance now to the property. But Carter needs to be, but that section needs to be fixed. Whether people continue on to Carter, I doubt, unless they've got someplace else to go. But it also needs that sidewalk so that people can safely walk without being in the street. And that's why it's here. So, thank you. And keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Madam Clerk, any other comments?
No other speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We'll go ahead and close the public comment and bring it back to council for discussion. Any discussion from council on the consent items?
So I just want some clarity on how much earth is going to be removed on the widening, because I think that's a valid concern. If we're thinking about, we've talked about the actual Meadows project at length, ad nauseum, about how much water is going to be used for dust abatement. So we know dust abatement is part of the plan, but as far as the widening, I'm hearing from public comment that we're going to be disturbing dirt as well, or is it just going to be asphalt and concrete?
So the widening will require some removal of dirt, some trees in order to place the curb and sidewalk. And I can invite Planning Director Lynn to give more specifics on that widening project.
And while she's coming up, let me add to that, and I think Councilmember Goss may have something as well, is how much of Grove is impacted on this. From what I'm seeing, it's the widening of Carter, and I mean, I'm not discounting Grove as an issue. I agree with many of the commenters that Grove is an issue, but what we've got before us tonight, I don't think has anything to do with Grove other than just the corner. Is that right? So you've got two questions there, and if you need Councilmember Garcia to restate his, no problem.
Thank you for the question, Mayor and council members. So the off-site improvement agreement, it's a technical agreement. It has not touched into the construction side of it. So this is the developer's burden that they have to finish the project for the city. So the next step after the agreement is signed, then we will get the construction document from the developer. Then we can determine what is the civil engineering plan and how much dirt or soil to be imported or exported. But to answer your question, all the construction, majority of it will be on the north side of Carter into the LA County's flood control district's land.
Can we make sure that when there's dust abatement measures that are taken when the dirt and the trees are being removed?
Yes, so those plans will be reviewed by Public Works as well. So all those mobility plans and dust abatement, those will be reviewed and included.
And to follow up, I just think, so that's why I asked that question before. We still have an opportunity as a city to make any decisions about the circulation aside from what we're doing here tonight. We're not saying we're not going to close down Grove, or we're going to close down Grove, or anything about Grove, right, tonight. This is just about approving the minor variance.
That's correct, council member. So after we accept that agreement, later on we can work with Public Works. The city still need to accept that parcel as a street, because currently that section is a parcel, is not a public street. So we have to accept that into our street system with Public Works.
So there'll be no impact, there'll be no construction or anything that happens on Grove other than right at the corner, is that right?
That's correct. So the initial design that approved by the LA County has improvement on the curb and gutter.
Just the curb and gutter. Got it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please.
Just to expand on Councilmember Garcia's question, irrespective of this agreement or the plans that are submitted by the developer to widen the street, traffic circulation is a matter for the city separate and apart from the development period, right? Like this is not something that we have to cede to them. We have control over the traffic situation in the city at any time, irrespective of this project, correct?
Thank you for the question. That is correct. So once we accept the street as our public street system, the city has the control to how you want the circulation to be and how you want to designate the street.
And that's part of the circulation element, right? And where are we in the process of the circulation element?
So we update our circulation element at the last housing element update. Our next required update by the state is due 2028. So we'll be planning for that circulation element update along with housing element update again.
But I thought we were doing, maybe I'm getting confused, there's a traffic study that we're doing as well. What's the, I thought we were working on something else related to traffic and intersections, and I thought it was tied to the circulation element, so I'm clearly confused.
Well, sure, it's envisioned to eventually be tied into the circulation element. Currently, our contractor, Will Dan, is doing the studies on the 6 intersections and 23 segments that we have always done. They are the major streets, and they allow for the police department to enforce speed.
Okay, so we're looking at the major streets, so this doesn't directly impact Grove in that plan?
That's correct. I don't believe that particular West Carter, west of Lima, is a segment.
Okay.
Mayor, these were the 6 intersections that were specifically called out by the city council for evaluation.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that reminder. Yes.
So we're in comment right now. We're
Yes,
not doing questions. Okay. So, you know, most of us, we've all been up Grove when it's been busy and not. It's a mess. It's been that way for a long time. We should fix it.
Yeah.
I totally agree with former Commissioner Spears. So I intend to agendize, ask for agendize that issue sometime soon, hopefully by the end of the summer. But for purposes of this tonight, both Councilmember Krebs and Councilmember Garcia are right. This has nothing to do, we're doing tonight, has nothing to do with traffic flow control on Grove. That is something we will deal with independently. So that's how we have to handle it. But I think most of us, I think, are very sympathetic to the idea of getting in there, trying to find a way maybe to widen Grove. I don't know what you do. I'm not an expert on it, but we certainly will try to get a discussion of it really quickly.
So maybe I should word it this way. It's not that we won't address it, it's that we can't necessarily, because that's not what's agendized here. It's not agendized to talk about the flow of traffic. It's more about talking about what we do on Carter right here, and then we make plans as a city, not in agreement with the developer.
Well, and I would say that we're even a step back from that, right? Because this is like an agreement to agree, because this is the agreement whereby they take on the responsibility to pay for all of this, and they have the obligations, but one of their obligations, I think, as has been said, is that they have to actually submit plans that need to be approved. So we have a couple more steps down the road, even with this section of Carter, irrespective of the Grove impact.
But one good part about public comment for all of you in the audience is that this is how we looked at those 6 intersections previously. This is off agenda, sorry. It's not off agenda, but that's how we get information, is when you guys give public comment. We just have to agendize it for another item.
Is there any other public comment on the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will move forward then to our next item, which is a public hearing, and it is Public Works Director Arnulfo Yanez on confirming the assessment and ordering the levy for fiscal year 25-26 for the Downtown Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Assessment District. Director Yanez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight's public hearing concerns assessments for the Downtown Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District. The City Council approved a resolution of intention set June 10th as the date for the public hearing. Tonight's staff is presenting Resolution 2538, confirming the assessment and tax rates and ordering the levy for the fiscal year 2025-2026. This resolution would authorize staff to submit those levies to the Los Angeles County Assessor's Office for the 2025 property tax rolls. The Downtown Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District was established in 2021 to replace the city's 4 previous special assessment districts. Assessment rates in this district were determined by special benefit, as detailed in the engineer's report, which includes a complete tax roll of per parcel charges. In fiscal year 2023-2024, costs of these districts were fully funded by assessments and will not require any additional subsidies in the years following. Before the City Council this evening is Resolution 2538. It is recommended that the City Council open the public hearing to receive public testimony and adopt the resolution. This concludes my presentation.
Great. Questions?
Sir.
All right. This is a public hearing, so we'll open up for public comment. Madam Clerk, do you have any comment cards for public comment on this item?
We did not receive any emails, nor were any speaker cards submitted either.
I don't see anyone coming forward. So we'll go ahead and pause for a second. Not seeing anyone get up, we'll go ahead and close the public comment, bring it back for council discussion. Any discussion on this item? I think it's pretty straightforward. Then I'll go ahead and... Yes. So then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt Resolution 2538.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will move on to our next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this one is an update on vacancies in compliance with Assembly Bill 2561, and we've got Human Resources Technician Eduardo Castaneda.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. I will be presenting the city's first vacancy report as mandated by the new Assembly Bill 2561. In September 2024, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill AB 2561 into law that mandates that public agencies need to report their vacancy status annually. To comply with AB 2561, the city must hold a public hearing once per fiscal year before the adoption of the budget, inform its recognized employee unions of the public hearing and their right to present information on vacancies and recruitment. And should a bargaining unit exceed a 20% vacancy rate, the union may request additional information on the vacancies and recruitment. The following data represents the workforce as of May 22nd, 2025. We have 91 full-time budgeted positions, over 18,000 hours for our part-time employees over all departments. The city had 5 full-time vacancies, 2 of which have now been filled, which are the water pump operator and police dispatcher. The remaining positions on the list have recruitments in progress. All right. As for our vacancy rates in regards to the bargaining units, we calculated the vacancy rates by dividing the number of vacancies by the total number of budgeted positions per bargaining unit. The Classified Employee Association is at 7%, which is 2 vacancies. Sierra Madre Police Association is 9% with 2 vacancies, and the Sierra Madre Professional Firefighters Association is at 0, with 0 vacancies. No bargaining unit currently exceeds a 20% vacancy rate. Next, we have our recruitment activity data for fiscal year 24-25 that excludes commissioners. We had a total of 22 job postings, and as of the date of the report, we had 4 full-time and 1 part-time position and 1 internship. We had 19 new hires and 9 promotions in the fiscal year. Upon our review of our policies and procedures, we did not identify any obstacles. Currently, all vacancies are on track to be filled within the next quarter. And with the with the addition of AB 2561, that will support our recruitment strategies by providing us with data that we can measure each fiscal year with. And there is no fiscal impact associated with this status update. Staff recommends the City Council to continue this public hearing to a date certain of June 24th to allow the bargaining groups time to address the council. And this concludes our presentation on AB 2561. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. It was really informative, and I appreciate the transparency and the ability to give the public the information in this way. Just a quick question about the vacancies. I know sometimes, we'll have vacancies that the department, a particular department might decide not to fill for whatever reason.
Right.
Is that counted as a budgeted position and a vacancy, or is that then adjusted in the budget to, remove a budgeted position and not counted?
Thank you for your question, Councilmember Reeves. So for the purposes of the report, I would have included any vacancy in that sense. However, sometimes some recruitments can be frozen if the department does not want to fill it, or if they are able to, in a sense, afford to continue to be without the position. But in terms of it being counted into the budget, if we're not expecting there to be a vacancy, I'm not sure that the department would budget for that specifically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? As this is a public hearing, we'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment cards for this item?
Mr. Mayor, there are no public comment cards, nor were any emails received.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and then close the public comment period. Any discussion from this item?
Just a question.
Yes.
So I assume the recommendation for continuance is because the bargaining organizations didn't have the opportunity, or we didn't have time to prepare for an opportunity to speak tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. The two bargaining units, I think it was police and fire, asked for the item to be continued to give them time to prepare.
Okay.
And we did give them notice. I did see in the packet that we provided notice, so it was just more of an accommodation.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Great. So then, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to continue this until a date certain, June 24th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We are up to the budget, to the meaty presentation, I imagine, of the evening. So, Director Rainey, you are up.
Good evening, City Council. Tonight I will be presenting the overview of the city budget. Primarily, there are 3 resolutions that are being presented also. Well, they're not being presented but are attached. The first resolution is the budget adoption for 25-26. The second resolution, 2540, that's 2539. The second is the approval of the GAN appropriations. And lo and behold, we went through, we passed the GAN. So we have no obstacles there. And then the last one is approving the 25-26 fee schedule. With that in mind, what I'm about to do is go over the funds of the budget. I will go over every fund except the special funds. A PowerPoint slide was sent to you beforehand. I will go over it and make it available to the public. The first thing is slide number 1 is the general fund revenue outlook. Steady growth ahead in revenue. However, comparing revenues from 24-25 to 26, revenues increased by $608,000 for the general fund. That's only a 3.49%. We were particularly conservative in our budget estimates. In terms of how we did our estimates for number 1.1.1 on property taxes and sales taxes, we utilize HDL in terms of doing the forecasting, as they have access to sales data and to property tax data. For all of the other data, we did basically projections based on looking at licenses, fees, and other items. In terms of transfers in, that is anything coming into the general fund from another fund or revenue source, there are none that were projected for 25-26. Are there any questions or clarifications? If not, I will go to the second on the general fund expenditures, the fun part. I'm calling this slide Responsible Budgeting in Action because I had an opportunity to sit down in this room with all of the department directors going over line by line every expenditure budget. And I don't mean the line item. I mean, we broke it out. Contracts, agreements, MOUs, what they were buying in very, very detailed fashion. It was an opportunity for departments to discuss, to clarify, to basically say, do you really need that? Or to make suggestions. I will have to say it's probably one of the most robust formulations of budgets that I've ever been into. So we went through all of the non-personal services in there. Expenditures are going to total $19 million, but I want to point out some things on there. Although we have the expenditures for each department, I have to disclose that in 2.1.8 on there, Public Works, 950,000 of that is for the YMCA in terms of the pool and the elevator. So you'll see a bump in Public Works there from the general fund. That is the reason for that. The other one disclosure is in 2.1.9, other. What, pray tell, is $850,000? Well, that's one of our favorite things called CalPERS. The CalPERS UAL. That is something that we have to pay into. You'll be happy to know I looked at where we stand in the UAL stands for unfunded accrued liability. As to where we stand, there's not one number, there are several. The lowest funded ratio, they do it by ratios, is our miscellaneous classic at 72.4%. Miscellaneous pepper is at 95.3%. Really great. Safety, classic, police, and fire is at 82.3%. Public safety, PEPRA, fire, is at 91.1%. And public safety, PEPRA, police, is at 86.2%. I raise this is because we also pay an extra $150,000 a year, and that is because we're buying down, and we go for the, we're buying down, basically buying down the principal so that in the long run, it will lower our CalPERS. So that is where we stand on the expenditures. I will have to say in the expenditure budget, it went up a total of 6.88% or $1.2 million. Again, $950,000 of that is for the YMCA pool and the elevator. The good thing about that is that really helped me with the GAN limit because I could use that as an exclusion. So that basically helped us there. Personal services, salaries, I'm sorry.
Quick question, can I? So what percentage of the increase is not attributable to the increased one-time purchases of expenses?
Approximately $500,000.
And what percentage of that, what is that in terms of increase?
I would say that would be about 35%.
But I mean, of the total increase.
Of the total increase.
I think you said we are about 6%. We've gone up about 6%. But if we take out the one-time expenditure, how much have we gone up? The real increase.
I don't.
It's less, right? It's less than 6%.
Yes, it's less than that.
Yeah. Okay.
So it would be less than the 6.8%.
So I'm thinking somewhere less than half, probably.
Approximately 3%.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay.
Around that.
Okay, thank you.
So it would closely match the revenue increase of 3.49%.
Right, which is roughly inflation.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just make a clarification just for the record? When we say that we are making capital improvements to the YMCA, that is city property that is leased to the YMCA. I don't want people to think that we are improving the YMCA's property at a cost of $900,000. I just want to make sure that we're talking, precisely, because that is a city asset and a city building for which we have the responsibility to maintain.
You're correct on that. We own the asset, however, because of liability and compliance with things like ADA and the like. It's a big requirement that we have. But you are correct.
Thank you.
That is property that we own. Any other questions on slide 2 on expenditures?
Can you clarify exactly what administrative services contains, which kind of inner departments?
Administrative services are what I call the support departments. They include human resources. They include human resources and risk management, finance. They include the city manager's office, these type of support.
IT?
I'm sorry, IT, all of your, what we call internal services. We utilize what's called an internal services fund. And what that is basically so that everything is not budgeted into the general fund. We do chargebacks, for example, chargebacks against water and sewer enterprise funds for internal service funds services that are provided by there. It's a way of equitably distributing the cost of providing human capital, risk management, payroll, and the like.
Thank you.
Slide 3, net change in fund balance. Tried to make this interesting by giving it colors: green, brown, blue, purple, and red. Basically, yeah. Basically what this is I'm trying to, if you look at 5.4, these are all what we call revenue inflows. What does that mean? Well, think of it again as your bank account. You work, you basically get this thing called income. That income is number 5.2. That's your revenue. But you're putting money into your beginning fund balance. That's the bank account. So basically what you have is your bank account in 5.1 plus your monthly revenue. Then there are transfers that would be made. For example, if you were matching transfers if there were transfers coming in from another fund, we had none. You add all that together and it's 32 million. However, then we get to our projected, I call it expenditures and outflows in the brown. Your general fund expenditures is what we went over, along with the transfers out. Transfers out, the largest one, if you remember, was the library, where we basically went into fund balance and did a transfer in order to meet the library earlier in the fiscal year, and some other things. We have a contingency of $100 that is at the discretion of the city manager for one-time challenges or emergencies and things like that. That comes to $19.8 million. So you take 5.4 up there, your revenue, minus 5.8, your expenditures, and you get what's called a projected ending fund balance as of June 30th of 2025, which we project to be $12.2 million. I did put on there our reserve policy threshold in 510, which is 25% of that, and that comes to 4.4 million. So 25% of 5.5 up there, 5.5, and then the projected unrestricted unassigned reserves, which is 7.75 million. This you will see when we did the audited financial statements. They will also show it will be audited as to what we have. But we are doing pretty healthy in terms of our reserve, in terms of our reserve threshold in meeting that, and in terms of our projected unrestricted reserve. One of the things that's in my agenda item in my memo that I'm recommending is that the City Council consider utilizing the reserve for the $950,000 because it comes from a general fund. The other thing is that your reserves are not usually used for operating. This is not an operating, this is a capital item, so it is allowable. And I'm open to any questions on this boring
So
page.
when you say you take the money from the reserves, are you taking it from the reserve
5.10.
policy, or are you taking it from the unrestricted?
From the policy.
Why? Why take it from there? Why not take it from the unrestricted?
Well, one of the reasons why I usually go for the policy is because that is what the target is. If I don't like going into the unrestricted because it often becomes I won't say a free-for-all, but I have to preserve that $7.7 million. You basically come up with a reserve policy because you're telling bondholders and others that this is what you're going to restrict yourself to if you have an emergency. If you start delving into the others, it will give the appearance that there is no fiscal accountability or fiscal management.
So why wouldn't you, I'm still confused by that, because then your policy reserve is going to be below the 25% threshold. So then do you have to refill it from the unrestricted reserve?
Usually you go through the fiscal year, and it basically, that's your restriction, no more than that 25%.
Okay.
It does, just like the $1.8 million with the library, it does bring down our fund balance. I'm basically trying to preserve our fund balance.
So when we're looked at and when we're evaluated for our fiscal stability, how do the rating agencies look at our unassigned reserves?
For your unassigned reserves, they basically, the number one thing they look at is, have you ever had to tap into it? Have you looked at your reserve policy threshold and you've exceeded it to the point that you had to go into your other reserves? That is a Detroit type of telltale sign in terms of not having very good fiscal control.
So if we were to have a large emergency, a large catastrophe, say like a fire, and we needed to dip into it, we would dip it into the policy reserves. If we were to in some event, deplete those reserves, we're still seeing it as fiscally sound. Is that correct?
I and the city manager would bring an agenda item to the city council, basically doing an assessment as to how it will impact our reserves and actually our fund balance, and basically make an assessment as to whether we recommend going into that.
Mayor, if I may, I think when we look at our 25% reserve policy, that's a policy that the city establishes. We look at GFOA recommendations, and we also look to the state for guidance. When we look to the state for guidance, a city that's in the 75, that has 75% of their reserves is considered in really good standing. Then you would drop down to 50%, and then below that, 25%. We are, a year ago, we were in a position where I believe we were in that 75%. After this budget, in the state side, we're gonna be dropping to that 50% area. And so, each subsequent year, if we can't find a new revenue source, we can dip further down in that state category. But for our city's policy and for GFOA, we're within our 25% that we've established.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all a very technical sort of accounting and rating conversation, but from a practical perspective, whether the money comes from A reserve, B reserve, C reserve, fund balance, it's just a matter of the fact that we have to make this expenditure, you know, these ones that we're calling out, these specific ones, that then put us in excess of what we project the forecast to be. I mean, that's sort of the bottom line from our practical purpose.
Yes.
From the public's I don't think anyone's that concerned about which technical, you know, account it comes from, because really, you know, it's a pool, and I understand that we're treating them differently, but the bottom line is just that we are having to deficit spend essentially because of these expenses and other things as well, but that's the bulk of the deficit
Yes.
spending.
And I just wanted to emphasize, and can you repeat, it's bad policy to use your reserve fund to dip into for your daily expenditures and things like salary. They're meant more for rainy day or these kinds of capital projects?
Yes.
Okay.
It basically, what is usually done, for example, the city of Santa Maria, they basically they went through a budget year to where they passed a budget that was significantly not balanced. And they basically, you can't really, for operating, go into your reserves for that. So they basically had the caveat that they will look at ways of reducing expenses through the new fiscal year.
Thank you.
I have a separate question.
Please.
I don't know if this is here or somewhere else, but the amounts that we've expended due to the Eaton fire and the subsequent weather events, I know, that's being accounted for, both obviously to track it and also for purposes of reimbursement claims. Where does that appear here? Because it doesn't seem to appear. Because that's quite a large number, and I don't.
It was a large number, but if you recall, what I did during the mid-year, $200,000 was added in the mid-year to the fire department's budget, and $175,000 of that was added to the public works department. So that was what I brought to you during the mid-year budget, and that came out of the reserves.
But I understand that we think that the costs incurred are going to be in the $5 to $6 million range, and so where are those funds coming from? And I know we hope to get reimbursed from a variety of potential sources, but if we never saw a dime of that, where would that impact this budget? I assume that's coming out of reserves as well, correct?
In terms of where, I'm doing the budget not presuming that I'm going to be getting my FEMA reimbursements in the near future based on the history with COVID. So what I'm trying to do is basically put a budget for 25, 26 together based on the resources that I have. Yes, in terms of the future, if I do get those resources, they will be very, very helpful. But those were not put into my projections as helping us with our deficit.
Other questions on this one? You look confused.
Yeah,
So are we only looking at what we have because we have projections on what we're going to spend for Eaton Fire, as far as what we see in the current fiscal year, which is ending very soon. You've only put what we actually expended, so
Yes.
that it's a little bit of overtime, maybe a loader, some other things that were related to Eaton, just the actual expenditures, and the anticipated expenditures related to Eaton aren't in the next budget either. We don't have the anticipated expenditures, nor do we have the anticipated reimbursements.
We don't have the anticipated reimbursements. I would say that we have, and Miguel, we have the bulk of the.
Mayor, if I may, Assistant City Manager Hernandez can give an update on where we're at with cost and recovery, what we've, maybe a ballpark of what we've spent and what we anticipate. I'd like to invite him up.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. We're still doing a lot of calculations with a lot of the work that's being done, but thus far, the expenditures with operations and also payroll were cost right now is probably around the $400,000. Although we did, the initial damage estimate was a lot higher because of the just estimating of the cost. But right now we're at what we've calculated thus far is around the $400,000 amount.
And
it will probably increase, and that would increase if once we continue and finish our calculations.
So where in the budget is that 400,000?
The budget is, it's in there because it's been expended.
It's the current budget.
It's a
correct,
current
that we're
budget,
referring to.
yes.
This is next year's budget.
We've spent it. Eaton Fire drove up a lot of the costs. That's why in the mid-year, I outlined what those costs were. Knocking on wood that we do get some reimbursements for it. But it's all, there's not going to be any surprises of any really big Eaton Fire related costs.
So at mid-year, you don't expect to come back to us to ask for more money for the Eaton Fire?
No.
Okay. Other questions? Okay.
Okay. Tab 5 is the capital improvement projects and what we call carryovers. Let me tell you what this is. So what we've done is we've given you a capital improvement project list, a big ugly spreadsheet that has numerous lines and everything. What I did is I broke it out by categories in the first column up there, right here. And then I put the line items here that are from the funds that it's coming from. And this is a carryover. What does that mean? It means that this was a capital item that was budgeted in this fiscal year. However, the money has not either not been expended or not been encumbered. But rather than having it hit our fund balance at the end and then come back with a new budget, and then you're saying, well, Anthony, I thought we were going to do that. Well, no, we couldn't do it, but we're going to rebudget it. We use this thing called carryover, and we're carrying it over to the next fiscal year. I add it to fully disclose where the funding is coming from. The other column here is for the new items in the capital improvement project. So you have 2.9 here in the carryover, and you have a little over 10 million, 10.9 in the capital. This is the full disclosure of what the capital budget, all of your resources are. The line items here show which funds that they're coming out of in order to fund the capital projects.
So half of our budget for street surfacing and replacement is carryover?
Mayor, I think what's important for the council and for the community to know is that we did have the Woodland water main project slated to be completed this year, and that also included major street renovation. That street was in pretty bad shape. So after the main line replacement, that street was to be replaced and replaced. Because of the fire, the project has been delayed. The main line has not been completed, therefore the streets, we were not able to resurface them. So that item is a big part of why we're carrying over that street, those street funds over to the next year.
So most of this is due to Woodland and related to the fire. Makes sense. Okay.
Any other questions or clarifications I can provide? If not, we'll go to the enterprise funds. This is the sewer enterprise fund. The sewer enterprise fund is in pretty good shape in terms of finances. We were able to use some monies from, as you could see in the one before. This city does an excellent job in what I call fund diversity in terms of getting projects, capital projects done. Look at all of the funding streams that that is utilized. So for water and for sewer in particularly, I have to commend them for their ability to find these funds and to utilize these funds. The sewer enterprise fund will be 1.3, almost 1.36 million in terms of revenues, and then in expenditures, a little over $1 million, with a change in resources fund balance of 319,000. Going to slide 6, this is the Water Enterprise Fund. Again, pretty healthy, $7.3 million, with some transfers in, and then expenditures of 7.8. In terms of the 6.5, in terms of change in available resources, one would say, well, it's a negative. Where are they getting the money? Well, that's why they, as an enterprise, they run like a business. So that's where we utilize their fund balance. The second thing is because we're doing some carry forwards for the prior fiscal year. That accounts for some of these monies in the $559,000. As we're doing budget and we're not doing accounting, I'm showing only the budget basis of this.
So,
How much of it? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so we have adequate revenues for, this is for prior expenses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
May I add? Councilmember Goss, one of the things that we do, I think that's unique, it is unique to the water and the sewer department, is that we do a budget rate analysis every 5 years. And in that budget rate analysis, we see if our budget, our revenue projections are meeting our reserve policy, our CIP obligations, and we have the revenue to keep the lights on. And so we're able to do that every 5 years. And within those 5 years, we periodically do a look back to make sure that the rates are keeping up and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we have a little bit more control over these two enterprise funds than we do the general fund.
You said that most of the deficit here and the change in available resources is attributed to the fact that we are finishing projects from this fiscal year in the next fiscal year. Roughly speaking, of that, you know, $560,000, what would you say is attributable to that? You know, roughly speaking.
What?
882?
800, yeah.
882,000?
Yes.
Yeah. On the previous slide.
Oh, so then we would actually have a positive number there.
Yes.
Got it.
Sorry.
What is our fund balance for the water? It's not in the budget. I know it's in the ACFR, but do we? Just out of curiosity.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Fund balance from our last audited ACFR was, for the water fund, was 31 million, and
Okay.
for our sewer fund was 4.7 million.
Thank you.
So we have 31 million available for the sewer fund?
No, water.
Water fund. Is that
that-
unusual?
No.
It seems,
This is an enterprise fund. You have to remember, this is a utility. In a utility, you have things that break, you have things that wear out, you have new regulations and things like that. You have to accumulate a sufficient amount of money in order to do this. If you ran it like a regular fund, you wouldn't have money to do any capital projects or anything like that. I guess what I'm saying is, don't let the accumulated fund balance in an enterprise fund lead you to believe that we can do a lot of things. You usually have long-term capital projects that you're planning for, and you're using your fund balance to accumulate that so that you don't have to issue debt or raise rates. You have to remember, we use a rate structure, and the whole purpose of a water enterprise or a sewer enterprise is to keep those rates from raising. One of the ways you do that is you manage your fund balance. So when you need to do a big ticket item, you've got the money in there. You don't have to say, hey, we got to put some water lines in, we have to raise the rates. You see a lot of these smaller utilities do that. Not very good planning, not very good use of resources, but that's how we do it in Sierra Madre.
Yeah, we had a water rate study before you came, and we were only single-digit increases, whereas other municipalities were double-digit increases. And we also have to, I know it's not discussion, so.
And so the 6.3.6 capital outlay, so that would be stuff that we would be taking from that 31 million?
Yes and no. You have to remember that the reason why I put this one in here is you can see that they diversify their sources on here.
We raise money as part of our fee structure for capital improvements. So some of that, that's an outlay that's going to come from revenue as well. So if we hadn't pushed these current fiscal year projects into this year, we would be able to fund that fully out of that next year's revenue, because we would have been a positive change in resources.
Okay. Any other questions? Now, the finale. I want to tell you we have a cautionary road ahead. I've done a preliminary forecast. No, we don't use a crystal ball. We actually look at revenues, our projected revenues and our projected expenditures and the rates like that. And this is I'm only talking about the general fund. While revenues are trending upward, expenditures are outpacing them significantly. Some examples of that is with CalPERS. My CalPERS rates are going up. For example, I got this from the CalPERS actuary. For 26-27, it's $912 for the UAL, plus $150,000 that we add in to buy it down. That brings it up to $1 million. And then it goes to 1.2 million in 2027-28, 1.4 million in 28-29, and almost $1.5 million in the subsequent 2 years. So there are some cost drivers that are occurring that are really challenging for the general fund. So I put it on there, the CalPERS unfunded accrued liability. Annual payments are rising. For example, last year it was $582,000. This year it's $1.5 billion. Anticipated premium increases, liability and workers' compensation rates through CIRA, they're rising. Not as large as the CalPERS, but they're still going up. However, in context with personal services, well, what about salaries and benefits? So are you paying? That went up by 2.1%, or $202,000 in the general fund. What I'm saying is that we have some external cost drivers that are largely non-discretionary, and it reduces our flexibility to do things. My concern is that the first thing that it will hit is non-personal services, perhaps contracts, equipment, and the like. Then the next thing will be, well, maybe we should fill positions, or maybe we should keep them open. But I'm giving you this because we have to have what I'm calling a cautionary road ahead. How do we address this gap? My last slide. We remain what I call operationally balanced and reserve compliant in order to get us through this. How long? I'm thinking maybe we'll stretch it to 3 years. I really think we're going to be meeting on Thursday with the Ad hoc Revenue Committee. We need their help, city staff, management, the city council, to prioritize a range of structural strategies, including one is revenue generation. We have to look at some more sustainable, what I call opportunities, not opportunities, but opportunities. And the mayor saw, and Mayor Garcia saw, and Mayor Lowe, Ms. Lowe, so what was on my board on here. There are some options that we can look at. It's going to require some tough decisions. Cost containment through reusable cost recovery. I really think we have to start charging people for services when there's an event and we have staff there. We are doing this in community services. They're starting to add that to it, but it's not sustainable for us to be doing that. Operational efficiencies with technology and automation. I am not saying that technology and automation will save. I think that they will add more value-added things that you can be doing more with less. Streamline initial processes, reduce manual workload. I put some examples in there of ways that it can be done. What does that mean is, well, instead of people having to come to the counter all the time, we could perhaps process that online. And for those who do come in, we have sufficient staff to manage that. But I'm suggesting that we look at things like that. And then finally, long-term liability and risk management, enhancing our strategies to manage pension obligations, which we are, but I think we may want to look at doing that some more. One of the things is, because I'm meeting with them on Thursday, is we're going to be utilizing a investment advisor because myself and the city manager and the city treasurer believe that we can be getting more bang for our buck instead of just putting money into LAIF and into bank accounts, is to having someone to management. So we're going to test it out to see if indeed we can make more revenue. I believe that we can. Will it be enough to go through these gaps? No. I believe that we really need a sustainable revenue, a larger revenue with the general fund. But these are things that I will be presenting to the Ad hoc Revenue Committee that we can look at. I am just so thankful that we made it through the GAN. I did that last because I didn't want to. If it came out bad, I didn't want to. I wanted to know about that last. But we were able to put a budget together. I have to say, I really have to commend the folks here for what they did to help me with this budget. Never have I come to a city to where staff will say, hey, you know, do you really need that contract? Or, you know, can't you use whatever? This is the kind of discussion that we had in this room. I'm really impressed. That makes my job easier. That makes it a lot easier to manage resources. You have an excellent, in my opinion, management staff. And I can tell you, it makes working here fun. So that is the outlook. I would say, I use the word cautionary. Yes, I would say it's not as optimistic as I would like it to be, but I think that we have the right people in place. I think there are enough strategies out there that we can come up with some things to enhance our general fund. If we do these operational efficiencies in technology in key spots, if we look at cost containment and basically, look, we can't afford to do this for free. Here's my example. My example is that a lot of people are saying, well, you know, if police and fire and public works are at a parade or anything like that, you know, are you really saving that money? Well, here's my thing. If police, fire, and public works have other things that they could be doing, and they're doing that, that's a double whammy. I'm paying for their costs to do that, and I'm also having the workload of the staff go up. And I think that we need to find a fine line to that. With that, I'm open to questions or clarifications.
Mayor, before we do that, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our finance staff, specifically Satnam Ray and Selena Yang. This year's budget process was delayed almost 3 months because of the emergencies. And if not for the dedication and the long hours and the weekends of finance staff, I don't know that we'd be here on June 10th with a budget to present to council. The work that Satnam, Selena, and Anthony did was remarkable to get us to this point. I want to thank all of them.
Thank you.
I must publicly acknowledge Selena and Sat. There were days that didn't get much sleep. Their perseverance, their support kept me going, along with Starbucks down the street there. I should invest in there, how much I've spent on lattes. But they really showed me a lot of how the budget was done. They showed me new techniques. I showed them new techniques. Got to meet the CalPERS actuary and HDL and there's a lot of things to put a budget together. And I always tell people, I don't know everything, and I'm always open to new learning. I really learned a lot from this, and I really want to commend my staff and the staff that helped us put this budget together.
Excellent. Further questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please.
So I'm not sure you're the one to answer this, but I think I should ask it and then we should consider it. We were fortunate this year that our GAN appropriations limit went up by almost $1 million, or about $1 million, because of the income factor predominantly, not because of the population factor.
No, I changed the population factor. I talked to a colleague at another city, and our population factor was going to take us down, but we can use the LA County, so I used that to get one of the ways of getting it.
I think it was 0.3%, so it was negligible. It was mainly the income factor, from what I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what my concern is yes, we had an increase in the appropriations limit this year. The city is not familiar. We're familiar with UUT and some other things. We're not familiar with GAN. Some cities are ultimately familiar with GAN, like San Marino, because every time that they bring their public safety tax, that always passes. They also have a GAN provision that goes along with it. So their community's familiar with it. I don't know if you can advise us on this, but if we have stagflation, we could see incomes going down or not increasing at the level that we've seen. That can affect our GAN limit next year. And generally, when we're thinking about elections and things that we're putting on the ballot, how much time do you think our residents need to have an understanding of what a GAN appropriations limit is, and if the council decides to put something like that on the ballot, when should we kind of start that process, if that's something we want to consider?
That, Councilmember Garcia, is an excellent question. My main concern is effective date and election. When are you going to put something on the ballot? When the opportunity for that is. The second thing is in terms of, I would say we can get through this fiscal year and perhaps the next fiscal year, but going beyond 3, I have a deep concern and reservation with. yes, there are two parts of this. One is with the GAN, because we could come up with a way of getting more revenue, but if we don't do something about the GAN, we won't be able to spend it. It's a double-headed dragon. I think we have to approach both. I think I would like to bring this up to the Ad hoc Revenue Committee in terms of strategy.
And I'm not going to hold this to you to this, but if you're confident that we can get through one more budget cycle without addressing GAN, that would get us to maybe another general election.
Well, let me look at the. You're right. You brought up the demographics, which I don't know, and if indeed what you say is true, this may change, because to me it changed dramatically from this time last year with the GAN. So I would strongly recommend that we do go for an increase for the GAN, just for the safety.
If I may add, Councilmember Garcia, I don't think that moving forward, we have a conversation about increasing revenue if it's in the form of a tax without having a conversation of what that does to the GAN limit. Moving forward, if in order to solve the revenue problem, we're gonna have to have the conversation about GAN limit. And to answer your question, I think that what we've learned is that it probably takes 1.5 to 2 years to educate community on what a new measure is and what the impacts are to the community. So this is something that that staff needs to get to work on sooner.
Yeah, and my concern is we're going to have one more budget cycle before November 2026. I guess we could put something on the primary ballot if we had to. I don't know, but that's just my concern. But if we feel as though we can get through one more budget cycle without touching GAN, that makes me happy because of the amount of time that we're looking at. I mean, we have another year before the next budget. But.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is I only get the GAN numbers in May.
And there's a little bit of grace if you, from what I understand, if you have a year or two that you, okay, so. Yeah. I think the grace period might help us if we need to tackle GAN. Okay, thank you.
Director Randy, what's our percentage-wise? What's our largest category of expenses?
Personal services, salaries and benefits.
So salaries and benefits.
Yes.
So are we able to run the city with the current staffing levels that we've got right now?
In my opinion, you can run the city, but in my opinion, to run it as effectively, no. I think you need more staff.
So Mayor, I think that's a question that's probably better directed to me. Okay. I could tell you that we just concluded a police master plan and a fire department master plan that identified needs in both departments. I think when we look at our fire department, there's an immediate need for a risk reduction officer that could be an impact to our general fund of an additional $200,000 to $250,000. I think that we've identified some needs in the police department for additional officers. We've always operated, since I've been here in Sierra Madre, with the idea that we're gonna do more with less. I think we're to a point now where staff cannot take on anymore, and I think council has seen evidence of that. It's the idea now that we're gonna have to do less because we have less. And there's just no additional capacity for a police officer to take on additional duties, a firefighter to take on additional duties, a public works employee to take on additional duties.
And we just went over the vacancy analysis, and what would you think then also with being not necessarily short staffed, but limited on staffing right now, and looking at our future without being able to have another revenue to increase salaries? What would our longevity be at that point without being able to offer people a livable wage?
Yeah, you know, I've been here for 15 years, and it's an amazing place to work. And a lot of the people that work here recognize that and are willing to maybe earn a little bit less than neighboring cities because of the environment that Sierra Madre produces. But you get to a point where the market is quickly outpacing what Sierra Madre pays, and in the end, people need to take care of their families. And so while we've had relatively low turnover, if we don't have the revenue to take care of our employees, I think in the near future that we could potentially see an increase in that turnover rate.
And what about with our management employees? Like, where do we stand between the management employees and you know, the senior levels of their staff?
Yeah. So the CEA has a bargaining group, and they regularly come to the city to renegotiate their contracts. Our mid-management doesn't have that, and so mid-management has not had a cost of living increase in, I believe, 10 to 12 years. And so what we've seen during that time is compaction between our CEA and mid-management, to the point where some classified employees are making as much, if not more, with overtime than their supervisors. So so that needs to be addressed. I mean, when we look at our police and fire chiefs, they're probably or definitely the lowest paid public safety heads in the San Gabriel Valley that have a full service department. So there is compaction happening within the organization, mostly at the mid-management level.
And so you mentioned the need for personnel for police and fire. What about our library? We're going to have a brand new library that is going to come online in January of next year. With the current staffing levels we have right now, will we be able to run that library at full service?
So those are conversations that we've already begun, and our librarian has already begun making calculations on the staff members that she will need, and our current staffing levels would not satisfy the needs of the new library. So she will be coming back to council when we get closer to opening the library with what those staffing levels, what the staffing levels that are going to be required for the new library, or with some alternatives on how we're going to operate the library with less than adequate staff.
So we're going to need headcount in the police and in the fire, and then we need to make a decision on the library. What would be some of those options with the library that would be able to run with the current staff that we've got?
Right now, the
and
library.
I'm not going to hold it to you because I know that we're trying to figure out those numbers right now. So
when we look at our library right now, I believe it operates 5 days a week, and there's an incredible amount of programming that comes out of our library. Our library essentially became our community center. They host events for toddlers, for teens, the Teen Greens program, seniors programs, knitting programs, sewing programs, reading programs, you name it. You know, that's essentially one of our community centers is our library. If you go to a county library, you can check out a book and get free internet, but that's probably about it. So without adequate funding, we could possibly see a change in how our library is operated and the programming, the hours that it's opening, and the programming that's available to our residents.
So decrease in the programming and potentially even the hours and days open.
Correct. Okay. And I think one thing that's unique about our library is that our library staff, you go there and their energy is infectious, right? Like everybody there just loves what they do. They're passionate about it. And you feel that in the library, and you feel that with the people that visit the library, they appreciate that. If that element and that environment is not there for them, what is the incentive for them to be there, right? So it becomes a challenge where, you know, we may lose incredible staff because they're not able to carry out the vision for Sierra Madre's library.
Yeah, all you have to do is watch their Instagram for a little bit, and you get an idea of the energy and enthusiasm that's there. I know we're not supposed to be in discussion. My apologies. Okay, any other questions?
Did you do an analysis by chance? This might be for community services. Do we do, and actually police and fire, did you do an analysis of how much events do cost the city in terms of personnel? Because I don't know if people know this, but you know, when we have events like the 4th of July parade and such, we are using public staff that, during those times. So do we do an analysis of that?
We did do an analysis, and we do have a slight, I can give you a ballpark estimate. Not every event's gonna be a little bit different. For example, an event may have 2 public works employees, 2 police officers on overtime, and a firefighter on overtime. And so, we're looking at 5 employees, 2 from PD, 2 from Public Works, and 1 from Fire, I believe that estimate's gonna be in the $5,000 to $6,000 range in overtime on top of
For
that.
4 hours?
That's correct.
And in our community services department is a director, an admin, and 2 employees. Is that correct?
So, it's a community services manager, and he has 3 coordinators. One of them is assigned to seniors, and the other 2 are assigned to events. And then they have an allotment of part-time hours that we use for film and for helping with events.
Not a huge staff.
To follow up on that, is part of our fee study, do we calculate that type of cost in the permitting fees that we require for, putting on an event, or is that separate? We don't actually, I know with a lot of our permits, or other fees, we figure out kind of what it costs for us to do it, and that, figures into the fees in many cases. It doesn't sound like that's the case here, because if you're talking about $4,000 or $5,000, most permit fees are, low hundreds.
That is correct, and that's something that we're looking at. If there's a special events permit, like we have one for next weekend, the cost of the permit, the cost of insurance, and the cost of overtime would take that permit into that $3,000 to $5,000 range, which would be cost prohibitive for many.
And we actually waive a lot of the permit fees, even if they're much below the actual cost.
We do have a policy in place for nonprofits, schools to waive some of those fees.
Other questions?
Since we're kind of freewheeling here, you brought up automation. To what extent could we automate City Hall?
Is this Oscar?
How much could be done, actually? Is it even in the realm of possibility?
Councilmember Goss, I think there's a couple of examples that we've already implemented. For example, the ASALA, the business license permits.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be where people either mailed them in or came into City Hall to renew their business license. And that process is now automated, and people are encouraged to do it online. We have a platform. So I think that's one example of ways that not necessarily eliminate staff, but free staff up to do other things that are more productive and can accomplish some of the goals and objectives of the council and the community.
Councilmember, some cities are using AI for building permits.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next step.
Mm.
Yeah.
In my short time here, Oscar and I and Christian have talked about that. I think building the, lack of a better word, enterprise architecture,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can fit things in to our architecture. For example, versions of Windows that what IT staff have to do to upgrade the servers that we have and things like that are all very, very challenging. And I think you can see from the Eaton fire how they were able to keep signal and other things going at the same time. I believe if the architecture was upgraded, it would make it easier to accommodate these things.
Accessibility.
Another capital expenditure.
Yes, unfortunately.
All right. Any other questions? This is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment cards for this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Pause for a second to see if anyone's running to the mic. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move to discussion. Discussion on this.
One thing about personnel, we were just talking about, including AIs, there's always this learning curve. Like, we've gone out of Madre to business license stuff, but it's still taking staff a lot of time to help teach people how to use this because it's so difficult. It's not the easiest thing to do. And even today, I went to go get my paramedic subscription renewed. And I have to go to somebody and give them my credit card and do this. I can't just go online. So it's taking personnel time while she's busy doing other things to come and help me and then process that. And I can only do it during business hours. So if we ever had to reduce, business hours, if we had to reduce time here, if we're not automated, we're not offering any services to our public.
Yeah, Councilmember Goss, I did the calculations, that the question you asked about our general fund, and I got 7.2% increase, which is a little bit more than the 6 point something that Director Rainey mentioned. But if you take out the capital expenditures for the youth activity centers, we're like just over 2%. So yeah, so I think kudos to our, kind of going back to what you said regarding staff and what they did, City Manager Reynoso, to increase our expenditures, taking out those unexpected capital expenditures by only 2.2% in a year. That's unheard of. So there was a lot of cuts going on to things that departments may have needed, but we're not, on the top of the list. So I just want to say thank you to staff for really sharpening the pencils and getting this done after Eaton and all those things. So what a huge task. You guys deserve a month off. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah. Just to piggyback on that, I mean, it's not just after the fire. I mean, we have not meaningfully increased staffing or budgets since the pandemic. I mean, we've been doing less with less for way too long. And we got, admonished tonight by public comment, and I want to maybe admonish the public a little bit. This is like the most important thing that we do, and we have no one here. There's no one here paying any attention to our budget, and that, I think, sorry.
And he's a good guy.
In respect, in comparison to what we hear about other things, and so it just fries me that our staff goes through this much pain, really. I mean, pain and the long hours that we've heard about, and nobody's here to pay any attention to it. And I just, there's nobody here to hear this, so I'm speaking to the choir. But as much as the public wants to admonish us for not doing our job, I want to put it right back. This is the thing that you need to understand about our city the most, is what we have to provide services to you, and this is the level of interest we get. So. I'm sorry to sort of rant a little bit, but it's really disappointing, given the level of participation that we have from our city in many, many aspects. But here we are in really the bottom line, the literal bottom line, and no one wants to hear it.
Councilmember Goss, anything?
Well, I've been through this before, and I remember that we did actually make cuts after the city went through and did its budget analysis. Now, we weren't using zero-based budgeting at the time, so I feel like that pretty much controls for that. But, when people ask you here in Sierra Madre, okay, you've got a deficit, and you've had zero-based budgeting. You're telling me there's nothing you can cut to close that deficit? Over the long term, I would say, well, look at where our projection is. The deficit's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I can't answer in the short term that we couldn't find a few $100,000 outside of the money we're spending on a one-time deal. I can't with a straight face. So I feel like everything that Councilmember Creeve says, we all feel, but it is what it is. We still have to be fiscally responsible. And I really am impressed with our finance director and his approach. I feel like we're in good hands there. So we're talking about maybe having a tax increase, maybe in 2026. Maybe it passes, maybe it doesn't. Can you make a city government run on maybe? I don't know. I don't think so. So I think we should be a little more serious about our red pencils. Maybe come back in 2 weeks and talk about maybe where we could find some cuts. And you know, the truth of the matter is, we will get some publicity when we do that. We will get the public here. And that will hopefully, you know, get us past the tipping point where public opinion starts to actually cogitate on finances of the government. Maybe it puts us in a more advantageous place to get a tax increase in 2 years. But I mean, we can do this, and we have the money in the reserves. We can do this, no problem. Probably do it next year too. I don't know. I'm not getting the idea that that's good, sound financial government. That's my thought.
Mayor, if I may give the council some insight, having gone through zero-based budget 7 years now. This was the first time that I experienced where each department came with a budget that was lower than what they spent last year. But the difference was this, is that the next department they needed to present was not trying to build their budget, but what can I do to contribute to reducing that deficit? And you saw that from police, from fire, from IT. You saw it across the board. All departments came in with the idea of what can I do to lower my expenses so that we can present as close to a balanced budget to the council as possible. And like I said, this is the first time that I in all the years that I saw that shift in mentality of staff. Because, for example, with police and fire, I've always told both my chiefs, whatever you need, I'm going to find a way to get it to you, to make sure that our police officers and our firefighters have the tools they need to protect our residents and to do their job safely. Public Works the same thing. But if it's a want, that's a discussion that we're going to have. This year I didn't see really wants. We funded what we needed, and departments came to the table making significant cuts to their budgets, and doing so willingly. Yeah, impressive.
We probably could have used some of the wants too. I mean, they're not being frivolous when they want something. They're professionals. They know what they need. But some needs are more higher priority than others, right?
Well, we often talk about all of the deferred maintenance that has occurred in prior, decades of this council, and who knows? I mean, maybe those were wants, in those cycles. And I think we're at an inflection point, whether the public wants to realize it or not, that we're going to have a serious conversation about what the future of city government in this town looks like. I mean, we're talking tonight about whether or not, we can continue to subsidize public events by a factor of 100, right? Like, we're charging $500 for a permit for an event that's costing the city $5,000. And, I think people need to think about the benefits that they're enjoying that they're not realizing that they're enjoying. And to your point, when they come and ask, what can we cut? Really, the question is, what are you willing to cut in terms of services? Because that's
the question.
That's really where we're at. And I think, I don't think people have fully conceptualized that the scope of services that the city can provide on our current trajectory is much different than I think what they have in their mind as to what they should be, what services should be provided.
So my analogy, because I'm the newest one here, is when I'm looking at things like repairing our streets and the complaints we have about, yes, our sidewalks need to get on, yes, our streets do, but again, it's a want or a need. And when you have things like, you need to have someone answer the call when you call 911. You need to have someone fix that pipe when it breaks, because it was so old that we never built that infrastructure. So we have these wants, we have these needs. Those are needs, and we can barely make those right now, and we're cutting and cutting and cutting. You can't cut repairing a leak. Can't cut someone calling 911 and responding to you. So where do you expect these cuts to have? Even if we did cut, library hours, even if we cut events the city pays for and they're subsidized somewhere else, that's still not enough to cover these deficits that we're anticipating. You could eliminate a whole department and it won't suffice for our future. So this is Sierra Madre. We have a community feel because of so many things that we do, but when people come to the podium and talk, I understand your wants and your needs, but those things are expensive and they're not free. So it'd be good when people also give solutions. I love it when people give solutions with some problems. How do you expect to pay for that? Well, I'm not sure.
Bring your
So-
own pen to council meetings.
Yeah, yeah, things like that. Administrative costs, that was one of the top,
No.
the second top expense in the whole city. That's why I was asking what it pertains to.
Well, I'll start by echoing what the city manager said and applauding, first, the finance staff for, as he said, the tireless efforts to get us to a really impressive budget on time, considering everything we had going on. So just huge kudos. And then extend that kudos to all of the staff members, particularly the E-team. It's what makes it such an honor to be a council member here, is to have the teamwork like that, to have the dedication, to have that culture that we have as a city. It's one of the things that I've been most proud about what happens here in City Hall is that the culture that people have of coming forward with those solutions and trying to do everything that they can. At the same time, we've got a lot of red ties up here tonight, and I think that that's somewhat symbolic of the that we're in the red on this, and it's only going to increase. And we've got, I think, the cautionary road ahead is a very apt analogy here. Is that when we're dealing with compaction, when we're dealing with a new library, when we're dealing with just the basic services of police and fire, we're getting really close to a serious crisis, and having to make some really significant cuts on this. And I hope people recognize that of all the effort that the city is going to try to keep everything we've got at the levels we have, and it's just amazing to me. We've done this without a cost of living increase for our mid-level management for 10 years. Just let that sink in for a minute. 10 years, no cost of living increase for your people that are leading the organizations here. You've got employees that are making more than their supervisors. I don't think that's acceptable, and I think it's something that we're going to really have to work hard to change, and I'm committed to do here, in the rest of my term, both as mayor and as a council member. All right. I think we need to have a motion then to adopt this resolution.
There's three of them.
There's three motions. Thank you. Yes, three resolutions. Right.
I think Councilmember Goss brought up an alternative, so I guess we maybe should have to talk about that. He mentioned, was there an appetite to continue this for purposes of suggesting additional cuts to bring the deficit amount down? I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that.
Thoughts on that?
Look, I'm not trying to cause problems, but
How
seems
about
to me that if the public found out that in 2 weeks we're going to be talking about cutting the budget because we're in deficit pretty much in perpetuity looking into the future, maybe we would get some feedback on revenue and other things, other issues related to this. And we're kind of this is all being done so quietly. We're all just kind of falling on our swords here. It seems like the public should be aware of this somehow. Because, ultimately we're going to have to come to them and justify asking for some kind of additional revenue. If it doesn't suit the pleasure, I'm not going to push it.
I would, go ahead.
Are there limitations timing-wise? I know,
that's a good question.
I just don't know if we have some sort of mandate or anything in terms of, obviously, we're coming to the end of this fiscal year and we want to have a budget, but what are our timing restrictions or guidelines?
Actually, under state law, you're not even legally required to have a budget.
Oh, well, then that case.
Just like, what?
So we can cut the finance? No, I'm
Just spend what you think you can.
Oh, my
Look
goodness.
at your ledger.
Wow.
So, we've had some presentations here before, and we've had some before the Ad hoc Revenue Committee, about revenue enhancement opportunities. I'm just wondering, you know, where we are right now with the budget is, we ask for, I mean, to go on your suggestion, that we have it's either bring us revenue or bring us cuts, and that we could include in this next budget. Do we want to try to entertain that, and how would we do that? That seems like that could be a very long and drawn out process.
Mayor,
Is there-
if I may add,
Yes,
you know,
please.
and I think this was one of our ad hoc committee, revenue ad hoc committee members made this point, is that you know, the city and we've cut all the fat. We've cut even into some of the meat, and the next cut would be into the bone. Cutting into the bone would cause structural problems in this organization, and the solution here is not to cut. The solution is to find alternative revenue sources, and we are working on some of those things. Our fire chief is looking at a BLA fire engine. Our police department is looking at putting in enforcement, parking enforcement in our downtown. You know, Tesla hopefully will come online this year that will provide some UUT and some tax increases to our downtown, or some revenue in the form of tax in our downtown. And the Revenue Ad hoc Committee has some additional ideas that they're going to start putting into motion before we even think about a tax. And so we could bring this back a meeting from now, but the staff report would need to be prepared basically in about 5 days. And in that time, I don't know that there's going to be any significant change that we can bring back to council that's going to move the needle significantly.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I was going to agendize something at the end that might not address the budget now. I mean, we could, of course, they can still make cuts, and we can address it at the mid-year and things such as that. But it would answer your questions about public comment, about people's interests. So if we can agendize something about our community and what's important to them, that's what I was planning on agendizing at the end of the meeting.
I was going to suggest the same thing in terms of addressing your concern. I'm not sure that I think there's two things that you're suggesting. One is, you know, are there actual additional things that we could cut? I think we're hearing that probably not. Or
Well, I know they're not.
Right.
Without going to the bone.
Right. But then I think that the second aspect that you and I were both addressing is sort of the lack of public involvement in this process. And that, I think, we could probably
I think
address.
there's a connection there.
There is,
I
but
mean,
Right.
if people, you tell the average person, oh, we're gonna dip into reserves this year to cover our deficit, most people could care less and don't know the significance
Some
of
people
that.
think we have too many reserves.
Yeah, well, some do. I've met a couple of them, there are not a lot of them. So it seems to me like until we show them that this is actually as painful as it is,
No, I agree.
you know.
But I think, I'm wondering,
You know what happened the last time we went through this? I'll just bring up ugly history because I went through it. It was miserable. We had to go through the process of trying to establish whether we're gonna contract out our police and fire departments. Oh, and then the UUT became more popular all of a sudden. I mean, that's really what happened.
And
we tried passing the UUT twice, it failed twice.
So I'm thinking of history, and that's why I've been quiet over here. But the thing that's important to me is that we have staff, and they're humans, and they have feelings, and they work their tails off.
Right.
And once we start talking about cutting, the gut reaction is, if we're thinking about the UT, looking at sheriff's department, what happened to our police department?
I remember it well.
Yeah.
I remember
And
it well.
the reason I avoid talking about cuts is I don't want our staff to think that we are actually seriously contemplating this at this point in time, because they're that important to me, and I think to all of us.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I think the entire point of this is to demonstrate to the public. Like, I think we've talked about this in other contexts. Our city, I mean, and all the kudos we've given tonight just sort of bolsters it. We are somewhat a victim of our own success. We have done less with less so well that people assume that there can be less, and that we can continue to do that in perpetuity. And I think, we have to figure out a way to demonstrate that we're basically at a limit here, and that the next less is going to mean something meaningful to people that expect a certain level of service, of events, of, whatever it might be. And that it's not a threat and it's not a cudgel, it's
Reality.
It's reality. And that as we can only push people so far for so long until, it becomes a problem in itself. So I think the point is not that anybody is supporting more cuts. I think it's more to your point, which is we have to demonstrate to the public that this is serious and that we're not sort of getting the response that people seem to have not realized the seriousness of it.
Yeah.
And education looks different nowadays. How we teach people about our budget is very different. People don't come to council meetings the same way because they're watching us on TV or watching the recorder later, or that's built into what, we're trying to build with communication with the public. It doesn't look like it did for the UUT.
So, if I'm hearing correctly, so I hear that there's thoughts on an item that can bring more attention to the budget going forward, that will be agendized as a future item. That's, if I'm trying to read your mind a little bit.
I would say we passed the budget tonight especially, but I would like to agendize an item that would, I think, help with education and our knowledge about what our public wants, needs.
So, one of the things we've been talking about here, and it's been a part of a conversation, is around our events and around the cost of the events, and that we waive the fees. I mean, do we take it as a first step to just say we're not going to waive fees, and it's a small thing right now that we can just say, you know what, we need to be able to recover the cost for these events? I recognize it's a tough choice because they're nonprofits, right? And their nonprofits don't have large budgets, but
well, I think beyond fees is we have extra costs that we don't burden the organizations with, such as
I understand,
like the 4th of July parade, right, and things of that nature.
So historically,
I was going to start with the fee as the first step, and not go all the way to the cost. And when people say, "Well, wait a second, you're raising it up," and it's like, "Well, wait, we're still subsidizing this by a substantial amount." So that's kind of where my mind was going with
so
it.
historically, I don't know if you guys know this, but the 4th of July committee was founded because the city of Sierra Madre could not afford it. So they were canceling it, and Rob Stockley and a few other local people that are still around here dedicating their time started the 4th of July committee to fund it all. So that's how its inception started. So this isn't the first time that this has come up, where other entities have had to pay for our events.
So are you saying you'd be in support of not waiving fees for events for the coming fiscal year?
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Like, we don't waive fees for
No.
the 4th of July.
We
parade.
do not
We-
waive
No, I
any fees.
understand.
So we need to make sure that we're
You're
talking
saying,
about-
do we not charge for services? That's what you mean, not waive fees?
No, I was specifically talking waiving
Permit.
fees, and then the next step would be recover costs. I mean, that to me is a logical progression.
I think we're moving into future
Yep.
agenda items.
Yep, I think I
We
agree.
cannot just do that as part of the budget.
We can't do
I
it as part of it.
agree.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, we're
Then-
considering whether or not we're going to pass this thing and
Fair enough.
talk about
Yes.
cuts, right?
But it's a
But
different
it'll
agenda.
require a real action. Like, we can't just do it via the budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not exactly
Yeah, it's
related.
a policy related, yeah.
Unless we change the budget all of a sudden and say we're taking, even still, it would still be recovered.
Can I just ask the committee, are you on, you're not on the committee?
I am.
You are on that committee.
Oh, revenue.
Myself and the mayor.
Okay, so both of you are. So where is that committee now? Where are they at?
We couldn't meet last month, but we will meet this week.
What is- what-
and
what-
so can we talk about?
You can report out.
Is it as it relates to
Report
the
out,
budget?
yeah.
Sure.
So, the big thing is, and I think City Manager Reynoso captured it pretty well, is that one is the committee is trying to come up on their own whether or not we need revenue. So looking at expenditures, and I think we've kind of gone through that process. But the other thing is, that committee needs to exhaust every single avenue of revenue before they even start talking about a tax. So looking at things such as what the fire department has presented to us, what the police department has presented to us, what the library has presented to us. Looking at these alternative sources of revenue and saying, okay, this is what we can get, but we're still not there. If we're still not there, then we need to talk about tax.
So you're theoretically tallying revenue that would come from those. You have some kind of model that you use for the.
We're not there yet,
It's
but
citizen-led. So, and I think as Councilmember Garcia was saying, is that we've just gotten through the background information for them. I think, you know, one of the things that we're gonna need to get more frequent meetings with them to be able to really make some progress.
Will they get a budget presentation?
They have.
already happened.
Okay.
They-
Well, not this budget.
On Thursday, they're scheduled to receive this budget presentation.
Thank you.
And they're only meeting once
A month.
a month? Could that be?
Like these revenue ideas you're talking about have some promise, but they're probably not gonna be filling the gap. I mean, unless you guys have been penciling out
Well, some of the
model
things,
where they do, and I haven't heard about
well,
it.
we saw what Chief Bartlett brought to us. I mean,
Well, that could have
some of that,
have
if
impact.
all three of those things get hit, I mean, that could make a significant difference and move the needle.
Mhm.
So coming back around, and I think, you know, I've heard from a number of you that, you know, we do need to pass the budget tonight, and I think that does make the most sense. So why don't we move then to entertaining a motion for approving the 3 resolutions that we have for the budget.
I make a motion to pass Resolution 25-39, adopting the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 budget, as well as Resolution 25-40, approving the GAN appropriations limit for 2025-2006, and Resolution 25-41, approving the fiscal year 2025-26 fee schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. We have 2 more items for tonight. The next item, I think these next 2 should be too long. The first one is City Attorney Garagosian as presenting the new City Manager Employment Agreement for consideration.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As everyone knows, the City Manager, Jose Reynoso's, will be resigning effective June 12th, which is this Thursday. Assistant City Manager Miguel Hernandez will assume as acting City Manager upon Mr. Reynoso's resignation. The City Council conducted interviews, identified a candidate. His name is Michael Bruckner, and City staff negotiated the employment agreement that is in your staff report for your consideration. And if the City Council is fine with those terms, you can approve that employment agreement. And if you do, then the new City Manager will begin work here at Sierra Madre on Monday, July 7th. That concludes my presentation.
Great. Questions?
Nope.
This is a discussion item, so we open up for public comment. Any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, there was one email that was received from Samuel Peterson. That email was forwarded to the City Council for consideration.
Great.
No
Thank you,
speaker
Madam Clerk.
cards.
All right. Then we'll go ahead and close public comment. Discussion?
I just wanted to augment what the city attorney said, that the interview process also included the senior city staff, and so I just want to make sure that it was clear to the public that it wasn't just the City Council's evaluation, but also the staff's evaluation as well that went into determining the candidate that we made an offer to.
Well, and we did have a subcommittee that worked on it, and yourself and Councilmember Goss did it, and want to thank you guys for your effort for getting the first candidates through, and then to the executive team for doing interviews along with the full council. I'll just say I'm excited about Mr. Bruckner. I think he's going to be a really good fit for the city. He came very well prepared and with a lot of really good ideas, and I'm excited to see what he has to do to help us lead us through this next chapter.
Yeah, I concur with that. I think he's got a lot of promise. I'm very hopeful.
Can we take public comment?
Oh, I
We
should
already
also-
closed it.
Okay.
we should also thank the 2 members of our community who actually sat on our subcommittee as
yes.
well. Just a really invaluable addition, both of whom are currently employed in other cities, so really brought an expertise to this process that I we really would have been at a deficit if that was possible. So I really want to thank them as well.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? And I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Mr. Bruckner's employment agreement as our new city manager.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We're really happy about it.
Yes, we are. All right, on to the last item.
This will be my item, Mayor.
Yes.
So the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, the Executive Committee, is recommending that the COG, the SGV COG, establish a 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games ad hoc committee. And the idea is that they're going to look at issues in the San Gabriel Valley, specifically in the areas of mobility, community involvement, and workforce and labor. And they've asked for member cities if they would like to participate in the ad hoc. I did reach out to SGV COG and told them that there was interest by the city of Sierra Madre to participate, and they said they would put a placeholder in for us. So we're seeking direction from council to appoint either an elected or a non-elected. I do know that there's interest from the council, and we also received public comment from Rochelle Arizmendi, former mayor, who would also like to be considered. And Mayor, that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Questions?
One question?
Yeah, please.
So, would it be a designee and an alternate, or would be able to be able to have two?
It is a designee and an alternate, yes.
And a follow-up question: when we're talking about non-elected, were you contemplating staff, or because obviously former Mayor Arizmendi would be an excellent pick as well, but what was your contemplation on that?
So initially, my idea was that a staff member, in addition to a council member, would be, my recommendation would be appropriate. This way the staff member could work with council and have some insight on what resources the city has available to council.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
You mean adding more to someone's agenda?
More work.
And this is for just transportation and mobility, right? This is just...
This is transportation, mobility, community. For example, if a city can host certain events, what can that city bring to the experience to bring events to that city? And then also the workforce and labor side of it. So those are the three items that were mentioned, but they also stated that the ad hoc committee, when it first meets, is going to set the priorities for the next 2 years.
I have a question. So, and then are they then, is the COG then involved at the sort of next level up in the organizing? I mean, is the idea that this committee will, have communication out and some sort of, interaction with the, the regional organizing committee, so that there's some coordination between the San Gabriel Valley and, sort of the broader LA community organization events?
Yeah, at this point, that wasn't made clear, but I'm sure that that's probably going to be one of their goals.
And is this just for the Olympics and Paralympics? Not for any of the other 7 major sporting events that's coming to LA in the next 4 years?
This is for the Olympic and Paralympic.
Okay.
May I ask
So community activations, that is, tell me more about what it means by community activations.
So when we think of, again, community activations is the research that I've done in communicating with the COG is, for Sierra Madre, what events, what programs can we put on to add to the experience for the Olympic or Paralympics? I think Sierra Madre is uniquely positioned. We're next to the Rose Bowl. Some of the events are held at the Rose Bowl. There's an opportunity for Sierra Madre to look at its Airbnb policy and maybe revisit that. and open that up for residents to make their home available as an Airbnb. Now you have people from all over the world in this region, in Sierra Madre. So what can Sierra Madre provide as an additional experience to people that are coming to the Rose Bowl in our town? So it's an opportunity for us to showcase to the COG, this is what Sierra Madre can bring as an experience in the community to provide a greater experience for that. So that's an example of on the community side. I think we've done a lot of really good work on the transportation side. We extended our bus line that goes from Sierra Madre, I believe it goes to the Sierra Madre train station. So now we have the idea of looking at our Airbnb policy where we bring people in. We have a bus line that takes people from here to downtown LA that can help them get to different places and avoid the freeways and the mayhem that can be happening on our freeways. And then on the workforce side, maybe not so much for Sierra Madre, but there's going to be some opportunities there perhaps. And then those are just the three topics that they put out, but they're also going to talk about what other things member agencies or member cities can do to provide a better Olympic and Paralympic experience.
Great,
And
thank you.
their email says to formulate regional priorities and recommendations to the governing board. I'm sure you were somewhere close by during the last Olympics in 1984. Was that right, 1984?
Yes.
And I can say that like even our local Red Cross Association, as well as our chief back then, as well as some of our other members were in charge of the medical services at the different sites, at the Coliseum, at the Rose Bowl, and that was their duty. And so it was a huge employment opportunity for everybody in this region.
Great.
It's really exciting.
Other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, or a public discussion item. Is there any public comment for this?
Mr. Mayor, as City Manager Reynoso mentioned, there was one email that was received from Rachel Arizmendi. It's the only correspondence that we received that was forwarded to council. No speaker cards were submitted.
Okay, great.
Who wants to be on? Who was the one
Not
who
me.
got interest?
Well, hold on. So
I
we
should have asked that
we're still in public comment, or still in public
I
comment.
should have asked that in questions.
We'll get to it in discussion. Give me just a second. So there's no other public comment on this?
None.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment and go to discussion. So, who wants to kick it
Wants
off?
to do it, I'll nominate you.
I volunteered. I actually
Okay.
expressed interest. I two reasons.
Hey.
One, I feel like my external liaison role in this cycle is pretty minimal. You know, SCAG, we've had our conference. So I feel like, you know, in terms of workload, you know, that I felt like I could for that. And I also, you know, just looking ahead, you know, and maybe it doesn't matter, but if everything sort of lays out the way it should, you know, I think that I would actually be mayor during the Olympics, and so I thought that there might be some synergy there as well.
Cool.
That's really cool. You just thought so well.
Are they looking at, from what I read somewhere, I don't think it's in the staff report, every year they're going to,
That is correct. Every year, they're gonna be looking at changing the ad hoc group. So if we don't get in this year.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, that's
not
no.
more just like thinking
It'd be-
ahead.
and I won't be on the council then, so.
So
You don't have to be.
So I think we need to think bigger on this, right? I love the idea. I love the COG, but you know, we have next year. Next year is the World Cup is coming here, right? And the World Cup is going to be having games at the Rose Bowl. So if we want to start thinking about this, we've got a dry run in 12 months of things that we can do right away to attract people. You know, I've actually had a couple of conversations with the LA 28 organizing committee. I've learned a little bit, so I'd love to share it with you to kind of get us started on this. But I'd love for us to be thinking about, like, you know, how do we have cultural Olympiads? How do we have festivities? How do we have? It's related to the COG. This is, like, to me, directly related to it. Unless I get stronger pushback on it, but I think, you know, we're talking about the Olympics and trying to represent the Olympics, right? And to me, it's bigger than that. So, and I'd love to be able to have like a not just us involved with the COG, that to me is more passive. I'd love us to have something here in town to figure out what the business can do, and this is where I think former Councilmember Arizmendi it would be perfect, because she's there with the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, I think we've got opportunities with the British Home. There's lots of things here that I think, this is just a small part of what I think that we need to do. And so I think then I will stop there, and I do have a future agenda item related to it. And I'm comfortable with Councilmember Krebs being the representative and Citizen Arizmendi being the alternate, if people are agree with that. But I think we need to think more than this, because I think that if we don't, we're going to be leaving lots of stuff on the table, lots of opportunities on the table.
Did I read this wrong? I thought it had to be a staff member. It
No.
could be a non-staff member.
Non-election, non-elected.
Okay.
So what staff member or what were we kind of considering? Because I think you mentioned that they would know kind of our, the inner workings of the city. I just want to look at all options
Yeah,
here.
so, staff member that I was considering doesn't know he's
James. Ed.
Actually, it was, Community Services Manager Ted.
I was
Ted
gonna say,
Taylor.
well, Ted.
Well,
But then
he's here.
maybe he could be considered for another liaison position if it's agendized in the future.
And
too.
is it maybe your idea to maybe push back at the COG a little bit and say, hey, let's include the World Cup in this as a dry run? Or
It could well be. To me, at a minimum for Sierra Madre, we should consider
Yeah.
that as a part of it. Like, again, we are direct neighbors to Pasadena. It is very close to get to the Rose Bowl. This would be a perfect thing.
To be fair, we've had World Cup games
Yeah.
at the Rose Bowl, like, pretty recently. So, I mean, I totally am with you 100%, but we should also make sure that we're sort of not recreating the wheel and think about how we
Right.
slot in. Have you talked to anybody in Pasadena?
I have not talked to anyone in Pasadena. So I've talked to the LA committee. I'm actually trying to talk to people that are part of the World Cup, because they gave a presentation that I went to in early April, right? And they gave the presentation. The materials didn't have the person's name, and I didn't catch it at the time. So I was trying to get that to at least get us the baseline. So you're right. There may be things. It seems to be. This one seems to be bigger the way they're presenting it, but maybe I'm completely mistaken on that.
So the reason it seems bigger, just to let you know, is because it's played in all different parts of the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
Right.
So the only venue we're having here is, I believe, the Rose Bowl. I think we have one venue local. I don't think they've planned on more. And then you also have the Women's World Cup coming up. But we have had them here before. It's quite exciting.
Right.
I got to work at it. It was fun.
Mayor, if I may add, when I first got the email from the COG, I thought a council member and a staff member. During my one-on-one meetings with each of you, there was interest from more than one council member. And when former Mayor Arizmendi reached out, and the idea of having one or two council members and former Mayor Arizmendi, who is she seems to know everybody up and down the state and around the country. I just thought that it was going to rule out a staff member. We just, the talent with the council and with the former mayor seems like that would be a really good fit.
And I think, having a city committee that can help with that, that we can expand it even beyond that, because there's going to be more than what's going to go on at the COG, right? The COG is going to help us open some doors, get us some opportunities, potentially partner with other cities on things. I think it's great to be working with the COG, but I want to make sure that we're really thinking about all the different opportunities. And it's not clear to me, and maybe it's just, I didn't read the information fully on it, but I want to make sure that we're really thinking about everything that we can offer here. I think we've got a lot that would be very attractive to, we could be targeting different nation contingents, right? We could be the home to the British team, for example, because we have the British home, right? Or we could be to some other country where the fans come and they come to Sierra Madre. We have a festival. We close down Sierra Madre Boulevard. I mean, these are the types of things that they started to come up in my mind as I heard the presentations when the mayor of LA held this for the 88 cities of LA County to learn about these events coming up. So they're encouraging us to think big, and I wanted to bring that back here. So do we have a nomination of Councilmember Krebs and?
I hereby nominate Councilmember Krebs
With Rochelle Arizmendi as a.
with Rochelle Arizmendi as the alternate.
Great.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, we are on to
That might
future
actually be
agenda
fun.
items.
You can go first, because yours
Probably.
Walks right in there.
You're very kind.
The grand scheme.
Yeah, you know.
So as a future agenda item, I'd like to form a city task force subcommittee, whatever, yeah, I guess it's a subcommittee, to look at major sporting events and how Sierra Madre can participate in them.
And would you want this to be more community members, yourself, like, in council versus staff as much? Maybe.
I think we need to have a staff liaison to make sure that we're considering that, but I also want to have the community really involved in this, right?
Give them more work.
No, exactly, but I think that, we have to have a staff liaison, otherwise we're gonna come up with stuff, and then, we hand it to staff and they're like, they'll be like, there's no way we can do this. So I wanna make sure that they're on the same table with us.
I have one too. I want to keep my promise to that lady. I'd like us to have a talk about relieving congestion on Grove.
Yeah.
I'd like that one too. And then my agenda item was also, we have trouble hearing the voice of our citizens. We have really strong members that we hear their voices a lot, but I think we could do better. I think we could do a better way of surveying and finding out what is important to our residents, especially with the changing culture that we are seeing in our city more and more. We don't have as many people here, been here 50 years as before. We have new families, and so I'd like to investigate conducting with the ad hoc revenue in the background, a survey about what Sierra Madreans are, what's their priorities to pay for? What is their priorities and services? What
That's
are
a
they
good
willing to
idea.
pay for?
Yeah.
What are they not?
Is that something that we would do with an external, or would we do that through Taco?
No,
Ad
no,
hoc,
it's very
ad hoc
external.
is already kind of considering
Oh,
that.
great.
They had, I think somebody that you know maybe, come and present to the ad hoc regarding, community survey regarding some
So
of
would
these
it
issues.
not help for me to agendize it? Would it help back that up?
I think what I'll do is I'll convey that to our new city manager.
Yes.
To talk about a strategy on how to do that. The
I think
ad
we
hoc
need to-
committee, the revenue ad hoc committee reports to the city manager, not to the council, so I don't necessarily think that they take their direction from the council, but I will talk to him, and then he will make it a priority to
Yes.
get that information.
I just want to look at timelines, and we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
timelines, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't like waiting, and then boom, now we have 1
Right,
month to
right.
do this.
We had a great timeline from that presentation.
Exactly.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
gave us a very good
Yeah,
timeline.
very good.
Yeah, I think,
Which was
I don't wanna get into
incredible.
discussion, but I think that's something we
Yeah.
need to implement. I think
Yep,
you're right.
I agree.
But I think it needs to be part of a process.
Yes, 100%.
Mayor Pro Tem, is surveys and polling, or is it surveys?
I don't know. I'm not an
Survey.
expert in that at all.
It's
I would
surveys.
say polling, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I
very
would-
good.
It's called a
say-
survey.
Yeah.
I'm not good on the difference of that all that much.
Make it a census.
That's not my job.
Poll is a type of survey, right?
I don't know. I think so.
All right. Any other future agenda items?
I don't know if it's an agenda item, maybe it is, but I think maybe consideration of looking at our downtown parking, because we're talking about this pilot program, and whether or not 20-minute is sufficient, kind of with the Chamber of Commerce, what I'm bringing back from them. I think it's worth a look to see if we have them in the right spots, we have enough, if the time limits are important to have turnover, but
I kind of felt like that was a chamber, like, I felt like the chamber asking us to do that was kind of, to me, backwards. I feel like that's what do the businesses feel? Like, I mean, like, I don't know, we're not gonna do a traffic study around parking, so I guess I wasn't quite sure, like, what they were looking for the city to do, because I would like to hear from the businesses, because we've heard different things, right? We've heard, oh, I want this to be enforced because I want there to be turnover in parking, and then I was kind of surprised to hear that, oh, we're worried about
It depends which
worried
business.
about having too short a term turnover. So I guess, I think I don't know, I would personally push it a little bit back on them and ask them to survey
Yeah,
their members.
maybe I'm
and-
premature because they are doing a survey.
Right,
so
like, what do their members want? And because, you know, honestly, like, well, anyway, we're getting into discussion.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is driven by them.
So I don't think that this is discussion, but I just want council to know that when you authorize staff to bring back a pilot program, part of that is outreach with the chamber, with the businesses, and part of that is to determine whether 20, 30, 40 minutes, what is right for the downtown.
Okay.
So our police department will be working with the chamber and with the businesses
That's
to make
great.
sure that
Okay.
we bring back a program.
That's exactly right.
Good to hear.
Fantastic.
So no future agenda item for me.
All right, then
Move
I
to
will-
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
See you
you,
guys on the
Jose
24th.
Reynoso. Thank you.
Not even 10 o'clock yet.
Look at that. Your last meeting was fantastic.
A lot quicker than I thought it was gonna be.
Same here with, I